then tomorrow we've got quite a few new people lined up as well, and I'll give you that information in a second. So, okay. Okay, we're ending this stream, and as you can see, Siddhat has pinned it, so everyone come across there. Appreciate you guys joining in. Appreciate you guys listening, and for sure, we'll see you next time. X guys are obviously continuing. Just ending this here, and here we go. And I just want to thank Musty for the level 1 membership on both of the channels. And we also had a super chat that I missed. I'm going to go back and check it and thank that person as well. So thank you so much for the support. Guys, if you're on the YouTube, let me know. Is it working? Can you get... yeah, I've joined. So if you guys can let me know if it's working, that would be awesome. There we go. Yeah, if you can let me know if it's working on the YouTube. It's working. Brilliant. Okay, let's get back into the space. Hope everyone's doing well. Appreciate you all. Let's go to Andrew first. Andrew, hope you're doing well. How are you? Give us your thoughts. What's your thoughts about anything? Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry about that, Suleiman.
Andrew,
yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
I
okay.
can't hear Andrew. Is it me or is it him?
Hello.
Guys?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Andrew, we can hear you. I don't think Suleiman can hear you.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, I heard you. Okay, I heard Cyrus. Suleiman, you there? I heard Cyrus. I heard Suleiman. I don't hear anything. Let's see. Test.
Yeah, we hear you, Andrew. I think there we go. We're all back.
That's Andrew. Sorry. What was it? Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Yes. Can you hear me now, Suleiman?
I can.
Okay, great. Suleiman, thank you. Yes. Last guest there. Incredible insight there. I, of course, don't ascribe to the Communist Party or ideology, but I'll tell you, he gave us a tremendous amount of information. I learned more about the party and their ideology and thoughts, but great insight on his geopolitical analysis. That young man is very intelligent, of course. Great job getting him in the interview, Suleiman. And I really like the way he laid out how the empire, the American empire, let's use the E word empire, it is the worst defeat in its history. I've got to agree. We are in a terrible, unprecedented mess. In my lifetime of 71 years, and I'll say of the past 50, where I kind of know what's going on here, I've never seen the American nation of the United States of America in such a terrible dilemma where we're in a moral quagmire. This is not about any ideology other than good versus evil. And we Americans have to make a moral choice. Are we going to walk in the evil of the Epstein class, or are we going to support the moral resistance? And clearly, forgetting about ideologies and this and that, about religion, it's definitely Iran has taken the moral stance to stand against this evil scourge. Now, going into the Suleiman, I literally was in the space when you said breaking news, the deal. It looks like the deal is off. Welcome to the show. I'm going with most of the analysis. I think there will be kinetic, some sort of action down the road somehow in the midst of all this. And Cyrus has laid it out pretty clearly a couple times. This is a long process, and I like Cyrus's analysis on this. But there eventually will be a deal worked out, but America will have to concede, Suleiman, down the road. And I've got to play catch up on. I'm still trying to get Pepe's interview from yesterday, and I really want. He has a lot to say on that, and also the other interview. I'll think of it in a second. I've got to catch and finish that one. But folks, please. Suleiman is now giving us a fire hose nozzle blast of information. save the videos, go back, watch them, share them. There's a wealth of information there. Suleiman, thank you so much. Keep fighting the good fight. God bless you, brother, and love you all. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Andrew. Just to let everybody know an update, and guys, do retweet the space, reshare the space, let everybody know we're live. But the latest news is that there was claims made by Al Arabiya and various others that a deal had been reached, and Pakistani leadership, the Field Marshal Assamania, was on his way to Iran to announce the deal. Apparently, the deal broke down in the last few hours, and that meeting or his plan to go there was cancelled. So that's the latest information and news we have in that regard. So yeah, that's the latest on that. Let's go to Cyrus. Cyrus, what's your thoughts on the deal?
Hey, Suleiman. I think this is just one page of the chapter of the frozen conflict phase. So, it's to be expected. I think they're closer than ever to at least taking this off ramp to opening the Strait of Hormuz. I think that is the number one thing the U.S. is trying to get accomplished. And Iran doesn't intend to keep it close, although recently, I think as of today, they're talking with Oman. They're very openly talking about setting up a toll system. I really don't think that's Iran's intention long term. I mean, there are, freedom of navigation laws in play. The United Nations has a big say in it, and Iran doesn't want to set that precedent. There's many other chokeholds in the world that countries can make similar claims to, and it wouldn't be a good precedent to set. And if Iran was so keen on tolling the Strait of Hormuz, they would have done it earlier, right? So this is not Iran's objective, right? Iran wants to maximize its lever, which is the Strait of Hormuz. So this posturing that, hey, by the way, we're in works, the toll system is getting more rooted, and get used to it. This is business as usual. So I think this is just to remind the United States and remind the world that, hey, we're in control of the Strait of Hormuz. We set the terms, and it strengthens their hand as they're negotiating for this deal. I think the off ramp will be taken. Initially, I'd predicted second or third week of May. So if it would have happened today, I would have been on point with my timing. But ultimately, the main message is, I don't think the conflict will reinitiate. They've had multiple chances to do that. The United States has plenty of firepower. They're not short anything. The reality is that this exquisite military the United States has spent trillions to build has limitations. It cannot open the Strait of Hormuz, despite Iran spends $9 billion a year on defense, which is minuscule, and they were able to very confidently exert impose their will in the Strait of Hormuz and in perpetuity. So this is a real lever. Iran wants to maximize it, and I just don't foresee Trump taking the risk of walking over that precipice and putting the conflict into a spiral. Because once you start hitting strategic targets that are civilian infrastructure or energy infrastructure, there's no going back. As we witnessed the missile that landed in the Qatari gas field, it did $30 billion worth of damage, and it's going to take 3 years to repair. So once you enter that type of warfare, you can't just reel it back, right? So you've entered a new phase, and you cannot get out of it. It's like quicksand. So Trump knows this. His entire brass, the staff at the Pentagon, are in his ear every day. Hey, don't do it, don't do it. So I'm sure that he's not suicidal, but otherwise it'll be like him getting in the cockpit of a kamikaze plane and ramming it into the global economy. That's what it's tantamount to. So it'll be interesting to see, and that's where I sit at it for now. Any thoughts, Suleiman, on your end?
Yeah, I mean, the issue you've got with what you're saying is that basically, if you leave it into this, I mean, my position on your theory. I think the problem with your theory is that essentially you believe after 6 months, like basically for the next 6 months, they open the Strait of Hormuz up. I just can't see that happening. That would be like giving away your biggest leverage point. It would be a big, in my view, it would be a huge mistake by Iran.
But as you witnessed, they were willing to do that. Today's negotiations that were supposedly signed this MOU, memorandum of understanding, that was the first or second line that the Strait of Hormuz will be open, no tolls at all. So that is a big piece. The United States will not allow that to happen, and Iran doesn't want it. So what's at stake, what's stopping the deal, is the 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. Iran does not want that to leave their territory. And until a full accord, not even a deal, an international accord is reached that is more solid than the JCPOA, it needs to be ratified by Congress. I don't think Iran will give up any of their fissile material. So that's really that's what's stopping it. Otherwise, I think the Strait of Hormuz, it's a huge lever for sure. But Iran can reimpose their will anytime, right? So how much are they giving up if they can literally wake up one day and flip the switch? And it's exactly where they left it off as. So I don't see it as such a linchpin for Iran to lose long-term leverage. They can reimpose their will anytime. That's my take on it.
So you think all these moves they made with the Strait of Hormuz, like creating the body, taking control of it, legislation, is more of a negotiation tactic as opposed to a real thing that they're going to implement?
It's both. It is, but if they don't reach a deal, they're going to implement it. They're not playing. They are very serious. They're ready to set that precedent, and they'll need that extra income. I mean, Iran's economy is crippled, and it is an act of war to impose draconian secondary sanctions on Iran that you're not allowing any other country to deal with Iran, right? So Iran has no choice, and it will serve two purposes. It will add additional revenue to the national coffers, and more importantly, it will maintain their lever, right? Because this can't go on forever. Like this is a very unique and unprecedented event for the Strait of Hormuz to be taken over, right? So it's a major international event. So if we enter a frozen conflict where this will happen, it has to resolve at some point, hence the term frozen conflict. That means the world is not okay with the Strait of Hormuz being told. It's not just the United States. Once this gets to the United Nations, Iran has a winning hand right now because there's a lot of sympathy internationally for Iran because they got attacked. For all the reasons we've been talking about for weeks, any reasonable person will realize who the belligerent is here. However, if this goes on 3, 4, 5 years, Iran will face some criticism and a lot of resentment from the international community. So I think ideally Iran wants to get a deal and get sanctions relief and enter the global economic community and better the lives of their citizens.
Yeah, I think it'll be a huge mistake to give away the Strait. But let me read this super chat. It says, "Great precedent for it's a great precedent. It's a great precedent for Iran to implement the toll of the Strait. Their waters, their rules. Obey or pay one way or another." Do you want to bring Andy into the conversation? Andy, hope you're doing well. How are you? Give us your thoughts.
I mean, yeah, we saw the reports of the deal, but as we've been saying, like they said after the ceasefire, oh, we're almost at a deal. I'm not going to believe that there's a deal until there's an official deal signing ceremony and Trump or someone goes over and they both sides are like, yes, these are the terms, and there's actually something physically signed on paper. Just hearing reports is not good enough because I mean, remember after the ceasefire, like Trump's like, we're negotiating on this 10-point plan, and then the next day Trump's like, we didn't agree to any of this. There's no ceasefire in Lebanon. Israel can bomb Lebanon and do whatever they want. And then Israel massacred 300 something people in Lebanon the next day. And then it was so I'm not going to believe that there's any type of deal until it is the ink is officially dried on the paper and it's signed by officials from Iran and the US. Like, that's the only way we can really believe there's a deal at this point because they've done this so many times. They think this might have been I don't know if this is market manipulation on the US's end, and they were just stringing Iran along again because oil did drop a few bucks. So if this is just Trump, I guess, punting, but I mean, the reality is it doesn't matter. The strait's still closed. There isn't The fertilizer's already missed for the growing season because planting season already happened. I mean, the oil still physically isn't there, so it doesn't matter if you temporarily get the price down. The bond yields are still above the threshold Simon mentioned. They dropped a little, but I mean, what? You're gonna get oil prices down for 2 days, then they're gonna go right back to where they were when everyone realizes the deal's a farce. Like, eventually Trump has to either accept Iran's terms or see if he can win a war, and we know he can't win. So he really is backed into a corner. This just seems like kosher theater at this point. Like, I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, they've said they're close to a deal, what, 5, 10 times? I don't have an official counter, but I mean, you can't trust anything that anyone's saying until it's signed. Like, and I think Iran should just stop announcing that they're anything. Their media should just stop announcing anything until it's signed at this point. Like, don't give into their game with market manipulation.
Well, Iran didn't announce it, just to
Or
clarify. Iran in
they
fact,
didn't
denied it.
announce it, they didn't announce it. Didn't you say their media said that they're close or something?
No, their media says, yeah, their media said the reports are false that a deal has been reached or MOU has been reached. However,
Okay.
however, the gap is narrow or something like that. But it's nothing of substance. They, in fact, they spoke out to deny the claim, so that they're not making any
Yeah.
claims.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think the
Because
gap.
otherwise, you're totally right. It would show weakness. You're spot on. In fact, the whole time, Iran has always said, "Hey, Trump is talking to himself." Remember when Trump came out? Hey, we had great talks, and Iran was like, "Hey, Trump is talking to himself." So you're absolutely right. If Iran would have done that, it is not a good play. But they did not do that. In fact, to the contrary.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, just don't let the U.S. manipulate the markets. And as I've been saying, I think if Iran really should consider at this point just closing the Red Sea and like escalating the economic pain of this, like I think they should tell the U.S. you have 2 weeks to agree to our full 10 points, or the Houthis are closing the Red Sea. I think, and they should say this is our final offer. That's what I would do if I were Iran. You decide, Trump. I mean, give them 2 weeks to sign the deal, or the Red Sea gets closed. Make Trump panic. Then I think Trump would freak out and make an unforced error and attack Iran at that point.
There are a lot of analysts that say if hostilities.
Cyrus, do you know
Mhm.
why do you think that field marshal was going to go to Iran then?
Yeah, for this, they were
Why was it
close.
cancelled?
Yeah, they were close. I mean, I think they were definitely getting close, and he probably was jumping the gun a little bit. But going back to what Andy said, it's a very interesting
Well,
thesis.
but didn't
Mhm.
Iran say that he's coming as well? Iran confirmed that he was coming.
Yeah, but not for that reason. They didn't say he's coming to
Oh, you
celebrate the
think
deal.
that they were gonna come? Iran was confirmed he's coming for some other random reason.
Yeah, they were just and also
Mm.
a deal of that significance. They would have sent the foreign minister, maybe even the Pakistani president. It would have been there would have been a bigger deal.
I mean, he's basically really the de facto president of Pakistan.
Yeah, I know he's a big deal. I know he's a.
No, not big deal. I'm trying to say because you said he would send the foreign minister. He's higher than the foreign minister of
Yes, yes,
Pakistan.
correct. You are correct.
One thing we have to consider is the fact, like, someone like Lindsey Graham is saying there can't be any deal unless Iran gives up their nuclear. Like, we can dismiss and say, oh, Lindsey Graham's crazy. But I think Lindsey Graham, in a way, does speak for the administration, unfortunately, because if he didn't speak for the administration, then why the heck would Trump in the administration allow him on Fox News? Like, Trump would be, if Trump told him, "Hey, you're not going on Fox News and saying things that we don't believe in," then Trump would tell him to back down. I think Trump uses Lindsey Graham to just say some stuff and put out there kind of more what the real position is. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Lindsey Graham acting like he has power unless Trump gave him that power to be on Fox News saying stuff every day. Like, Lindsey Graham sent out a tweet saying Iran has this much uranium that they can enrich to 90% and make 10 bombs. Unless they give that up, there can't be any deal, and like war is going to have to resume. So like, I really think Lindsey Graham unfortunately does speak for the administration, because Trump, I mean, like, let's be honest, Trump endorsed the guy. So that's basically Trump approving of everything this man says, despite the base being like, we don't like Lindsey Graham. This guy fantasizes about World War III, and like, this guy, like, yeah, so I think we have to unfortunately take what this man says seriously.
I want to go back to a point you made earlier, Andy, regarding the Red Sea, closing the Red Sea. A lot of top military analysts do agree that if Iran were to make a play like that, it would actually be to their favor strategically, because it would force the inevitable for the United States to accept the L, right? So there is a credible case to be made for that, Andy. However, Iran would immediately lose this massive international favor. And the belligerent is very clear here, right? Iran was unjustly and attacked unprovoked. So That's a big deal. I think for those reasons, Iran is not going to give up that, because that's a huge lever point, especially Iran's not part of the mainstream international community. So it's very important that that sympathy remains. That's the only rebuttal I was going to give you on that. But otherwise, I think it does make military and strategic sense. However, I think the detriment of losing international favor, I think, outweighs the benefits of it. So I think that's why Iran's not going to do that.
If I were Iran, what I would do is I would say, if you attack us again, the Red Sea will be as closed as the Strait of Hormuz is. Do not tempt us. You know we do not bluff. So I would put it out there now publicly as Iran and say this is a defensive measure for us, and then put it out there instead of doing it after they're attacked. I would put it out there preemptively, so then everyone will know, okay, Trump attacked. Iran closed the Red Sea because of the attack, and then the blame will be placed rightfully where it belongs on Trump and Bibi instead of Iran.
Yep, that's much more sensible approach. And Iran, in fact, made a statement like that yesterday. They said we're going to reach in places you never thought of. So they weren't clear about the Red Sea, and I don't think that would be smart to specifically name it, because then the U.S. would set up a lot of assets there, preparing for that. But Iran has certainly hinted at that if hostilities reinitiate, they're going to step it up a couple notches. So they're taking your advice essentially. If they would be listening to you, they're doing that.
Just want to give some news and bring Anna into the conversation. So, a report by the Washington Post says the US military has significantly depleted its advanced defensive interceptor missile inventory after expending a substantial amount of it in defending Israel during the conflict with Iran, while Israeli forces themselves used fewer ammunitions, per the Washington Post, citing Defense Department assessments. US officials said Washington launched more than 200,000 interceptors, nearly half of the Pentagon inventory, along with over 100 SM-3s and SM-6 naval interceptors during the war with Iran. In comparison, Israel fired fewer than 100 Arrow interceptors and about 90 David Sling interceptors. That's hilarious. So they're even making America use up all its defense interceptor supplies, and they're using theirs a lot less sporadically. That's interesting. So I'm going to bring Anna into the conversation. Anna, I hope you're doing well. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I think it's really interesting what you just said, actually. I've been thinking a lot about the China trip that they recently took, that Trump, was super excited about having been on with the CEOs. And the fact that the US is running low on interceptor missiles, it seems like incredible timing for there to have been exactly 0 defense contractors on that CEO mission. And I've been thinking about how strange it is that none of the big players, I mean, Boeing was there, but it was only their commercial arm. It was Kelly Ortberg. But if the US is running low on interceptor missiles like, Arrow 3, you said, and David Sling, then I'm just curious to know why those guys aren't being invited to the table, because China's the one who has the rare earth minerals that they would need to replace those stocks. So I have no idea if we're even going to be able to replenish those stocks, even in the lengthy time frame that it takes for us to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? The American defense military complex has created such a monopolization that they're not able to replenish stocks at the rate that they used it. And this was why this war again was such a horrible decision. We have some more breaking news, which says Trump says he'll be deploying 5,000 troops to Poland shortly after withdrawing 5,000 from Germany. Yeah, so that's that. I mean, Poland is interesting because, again, the Russians have been speaking about possible engagement with Europe. So it's interesting that he would send 5,000 troops to Poland. Cyrus, question to you, sorry. In terms of the Strait of Hormuz, would Iran want it where you'd basically have it where in your view, do you have the Strait of Hormuz where it's just completely open, or do you have it where it's shared with the Gulf states from your perspective?
So the way they broke it down, if Iran were to toll it, I think it would be more of a security passage. So I don't think they're literally going to stop individual ships. It would work out to about $1 per barrel right? So, it's 1%
No,
of
but I thought also you think they will, because I thought your position is that Iran is just using the strait as a leverage, but really they don't want to keep control over it.
exactly that. It's a lever point, but they will
But
toll.
a toll is a control.
They
It's
would
like you.
they would toll it if they don't reach a deal. But for the off ramp, right? The United States will not sign an MOU and enter into the next serious phase of conversations, right? Until the strait is fully open. That's a precondition, right? So, and it was announced today, like unofficially, but no, the U.S. had always maintained that hey, we need it open, but. This is to say for us to get into negotiations, it need to be open. I always predicted that. So it must open for this next phase of the frozen conflict. In my eyes, the frozen conflict began when the ceasefire was signed. And as demonstrated, they had multiple times to go back into combat operations and they didn't, right? So both sides don't want it. So for me, this is just the next chapter in that I foresee what they purported today to eventually happen. They will sign an MOU. I'm just waiting for any day for it to happen. And then they will get into these long negotiations. At this stage, they say 30 days, but I think it will drag on much longer than that. Give it at least 3 to 6 months. And at that point, we'll just pray that sensible people will prevail, because the only reason they're not reaching a deal is because of APAC. APAC threw everything in the kitchen sink to tear up the JCPOA, and it took Trump to do it. They needed a president that is completely under their control and manipulation. So this is all Israel's plan, right? For this deal not to work, they want Iran completely destitute and weak and broke, and that's the biggest threat to Israel in their eyes. So that's kind of how I see it.
Well, Cyrus, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this specifically, or of course, Suleiman, but I was wondering, does control of the strait, is that directly impacted by this IMEC plan that Dmitry Laskris, who is that brilliant guest that you just had on, he was talking about how crazy Israel and Cyprus are about trying to get this IMEC plan, that new Silk Road, right? And I know that the competing plan is the one that transits through Iran and also through Russia. It directly, crosses through the strait. And so, does anyone have any information on if that's going to be a part of either of those? Because I think it's a really big part of what they're trying to work out.
Yeah, that would be a secondary and like tertiary objective. I think the reality is the Strait of Hormuz is so critical for both oil, both urea, which is used for fertilizers, and helium, right? So that there are much more important strategic holds in the Strait of Hormuz. Israel's trying to do its own thing and kind of diversify. It's especially now, I think they see the writing on the wall. That they are getting used to the idea that the United States is not going to be around forever to give them a blank check. So they are making relationships with India. They're reaching out. They've even done deals with China. So, Israel is a small, insignificant country in the big scheme of things. The only reason we keep saying Israel, Israel, is because they are wreaking havoc in the region, and they have a lot of undue influence in the United States. Otherwise, they're really not important. I mean, who is Israel? It's a tiny country with 9 million people, and they're doing their thing. You know what I mean? Like they should not be in everyday conversation so much.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I definitely would agree that most Americans definitely have Israel fatigue, especially those of us who have been paying attention for any amount of time. But I would definitely disagree with you with how important it is to all of this conflict, because they are the driving force behind it. And we know that they're fully in control of the United States and their military actions. So I do think that there's a possibility that although the Strait is being framed as the true tension point, I get the feeling that the fact that the Iranian Russian corridor, it decreases the length of time for the same transit by like 60 or 70%. So I do think that it is important. I think it may be that it ends up being a part of the deal, but I actually think that Iran's focus, rightfully so, is on both places, not just the Strait. The Strait is just, in my impression anyway, what they know is going to be, viewed as this crunch point globally. It is how they can exert pressure. It is their nuke, right? But is it their true interest? Because if we're talking about a dollar a barrel per day or whatever the case may be, then ultimately that is something that they will be able to make up for quite a bit if this new INSTC does go forward. So it's just something to think about. That's my opinion.
No, it's for sure relevant, and it's definitely in the picture. And you're on the right track. But I see it a little differently, just by the fact that the international economy is beholden to what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. That is the real flashpoint right now, and they're dying to resolve it. I mean, you see how Trump is panicking. I mean, he is literally every day he's coming to Pakistan and India, and all these people calling me, begging me to not go to war. And every day it's some country begging him to not go to war, when in reality he's stuck. So that he's in a bad spot. America's never been in this situation historically. This is the first time they have to take a strategic L. There's no way around it, right?
This is not the, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is not the first time they have taken a strategic out. I mean, let's give some respect to the Houthis. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little different. I mean, this is the Houthis cannot maintain that control, right, over it's more harassing fire. You can't compare like the Houthis to the force that Iranian brings to bear. So this is quite a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making that point more as the fact that the United States definitely has, unfortunately, been kind of exposed as a paper tiger. And I love our military. I love our troops. My family is military. But what I would say is that the American perspective is being forced to be focused on the Middle East when we definitely have other things that we would much prefer to be thinking about and talking about.
Well said.
Yeah, just want to welcome Hawes onto the stage. Hawes, hope you're doing well. How are you? How's things?
Hi guys, I hope you're all well. I'm in Tehran. I am having a good time with my countrymen. I just want to give you a very quick health update. Since I've come back to Iran, I've been able to stand up and walk for 2 hours. I've not been able to walk in England for more than half an hour, like at maximum, since the day of the operation. I don't know what it is, whether it's the water, whether it's the fact that I'm standing with my countrymen in Iran at the moment. And, I'm getting bussed from one place to another. And the feeling over here is unbelievable. I mean, I've been posting videos on my Instagram, on Twitter whenever I can, but the internet connection's absolutely horrendous for connections. But I think I've got a stable connection now, in the sense I've got a SIM card that allows me to post more regularly. So I will do. And Suleiman, I've not been able to keep up with all your stuff because I've literally not been able to get on Twitter. I've not had, and that's a huge, big problem for a lot of people in the country who are used to using the internet, wanting to use the internet and to use things like, the social media stuff. But the reason they've done what they've done was shutting down all of this stuff is to stop the swarm attacks that were taking place on things that have now been reduced because of it. And what I can tell you from being in 3 different squares on 3 different nights this week is the resilience of the Iranian people. And they are more than happy to go into war and continue into war. And in fact, tonight's meeting in Valias was literally one speaker after another. And what they're doing is they're inviting people from the crowd to come up and say their points and say their points of views. And the points of view of the people is like, why are we in a ceasefire? That was one of the people that was contending with, like, we don't want to be in a ceasefire. We want to get this done with, as in, like, let's finish it militarily. And another person that came up, a second person, goes, we got a ceasefire, put a limit on it. Don't keep making it an open-ended, like, ceasefire. There has to be an end to pick a day, 3 days. After that, if it's not resolved, we're back in action, sort of thing. So, and that's just your average people. And they're not government people. These are just people who are in the crowd of thousands of people who are there. I mean, tonight's was not thousands, it was hundreds. But the mood in the country is one of like absolute belligerence, absolute resistance. And there is, they don't see themselves being defeated and they're willing to pay any price. It's literally willing to pay any price and to make sure that, they don't have to bend the knee to anybody. And, how much I dislike Israel. The feeling over here, with certain sectors is as bad as how I feel about Israel. And there are others who I've met who've turned around and said, why do we have to be the champions of Lebanon? Why do we have to be the champions of Gaza? Why is it our business? And that's the kind of conversation they're having with me. And because I'm a person that supports Palestine and I walk around wearing my keffiyeh, for instance, wherever I go, I always wear it. So if you see me doing any videos, I'm always wearing this Palestinian keffiyeh because it's an important part of my demonstration of support for Gaza and Palestine and everything else. A lot of people don't like that because they think that this money is being wasted on these people. But I'm turning people around, making them understand that the important thing is that if we don't support these people, then we'll be next. And that's exactly what it's going to be. So things are going our way. When you've got a whole nation with you and the nation's walking in lockstep with the direction that the government wants to go, you can't really lose unless they're willing to murder everyone from the sky. And I don't think they've got enough munitions to do that. And the Iranian people are absolutely adamant and resilient against, going into any kind of ceasefire. So, the government may try and do a ceasefire, but the people themselves are adamant. And the main line is, and this was the line that was used by the person who was getting on the street, goes, why are we so cheap in the value of the blood that we've lost in our leaders, in our generals, in the people they've killed? They've killed our supreme leader. Why are we willing to cheapen it and accept a ceasefire with these people? They need to suffer much in the same way as we've suffered. And, and it's like a sense of blood libel, effectively, for the deaths of these generals and the supreme leader. So that's just how a lot of the people feel. I just thought I'd come up here, Sully, and give you an update. Just finished having kebabs with some boys from the people I've met here, and obviously I've been accused of getting money from the government of Iran and from everywhere else in the world. So I did a nice little taking the piss out of them and saying, yeah, the government's just paid for me to have kebabs and to wind up those Pahlavi people. I came here with a broken back to stand up with my people, because people who turn around and Sully, you and I both know what I'm about to say, yeah? There's so many people that turn around and say, if you love Palestinians so much, why don't you go and fight them over there? To me, it's like, they keep saying to me, well, if you love Iran so much, you're saying, why don't you go back over there? Well, okay, well, I've come back. I'm standing here and I'm not going anywhere. And my British passport, I'm going to be giving a speech in Ingalab Square, which is like where the revolutionary, it's called the Revolutionary Square. So I've been invited to be one of the speakers at that event, to say my piece as the person who I am, and for coming here in the way I have done with a broken back and willing to do whatever to stay here. I'm going to be giving my British passport to one of the speakers, one of the singers, who is the person that speaks the Shia song. He's going to keep my passport. I'm not going to keep my passport, my British passport. And I'm saying to them, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in this country. I'm staying in Iran until the last final actual ceasefire, not as a ceasefire, but is a peace deal that's guaranteed by law. Then I'll think about leaving, because I'm going to stay here and share the same space as you guys and get bombed the same as you guys, because sitting in my house in Bayswater in the safety of London and telling people not to accept a ceasefire and to fight is a coward's way. So I've decided that I'm coming here to stand up with my people, and if I've got to be under the same bombs as them, all good and well. And that's the way men should do things. Don't talk shit, you walk it, and that's it. Sully, I've spoken quite a lot, mate. I'm gonna shut up. I love you, and I love all of the stuff that everyone's doing all the time throughout the whole period of this. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come up and talk to you about Iran and how things are. And now that I've got the internet, I'm going to try and come on a more regular basis.
Appreciate it, Haz. Hope you're doing well there. What was the point you made about Palestine, though? I missed that. Did you say that people in Iran are against Palestine?
So there's a huge divide on people who think $50 billion that has been spent in Syria, Lebanon, and in Gaza could have been better spent in Iran to support the poor of this country, instead of having that money go to support the Axis to Resistance. Now, that's a figure that has been put up by the government themselves, that they've spent that much money in the support of the Axis of Resistance countries. And there is a huge amount of inflation that's taken place. And this inflation is hurting people who are on the poorer scale. The people who are making 30 million Toman, which is effectively, £83 or something. It's some stupid amount of money, absolutely nothing. Sorry, 20 million pounds So to be straight, kind of also, there's 220 toman or 220,000 toman is £1. So these guys are on like 80 quid or 90 quid a month, and things that cost absolutely nothing in England, for instance, are costing more money here, and it's homemade. For instance, chickens. So if someone's salary is 20 million toman, yeah, for him to buy a chicken is 1.3 million toman. Now that's supposed to last you 30 days, and you've got to pay for your rent, you've got to pay for your travel. So the people are hurting financially, as in like the poorest people. Other people can afford for the chicken and whatever else, because they make the same kind of money, much more money in dollars. And so there's a lot of people who are unhappy with the fact that this is happening. But this is not something that's from this war here now. The people now are all together. But there's a lot of people that blame, support for Palestine as a reason for the poverty that they've got. But these are actually just talking points that are brought about by Iran International, another TV channel called Manotor, which are effectively just Israeli propaganda paid for by Israel to poison the people over here against the government, against each other, and it is a talking point. It is an actual talking point that people don't want to support Palestine. And this is the other thing. Sorry, Sonny, I'm talking a bit too much. But I had a guy turn around and say to me, "Who are we as Iran, to be going to guard Palestine and Lebanon? Why are we making it our business that we're doing that?" And I'm like, and I explained to him, I said, you've either got to be the most ignorant, stupid human being in the world, or you're a complete sellout. I said, reason one, Gaza and Lebanon are getting murdered by dogs, by rabid dogs. That's what Israel is. And if you think that they won't do exactly the same thing to us somewhere down the line, you're out of your mind. And their attitude is, but if we make peace with them, I said, you can't make peace with a rabid dog. The way they behave. And you explain to them that this is how Israel has behaved all the time. They've never actually made peace with anyone. All they've ever done is trying to subjugate people with weapons. And that's all it's ever been. But they think that they're immune to it, and that if Israel clears the decks with the whole population of Lebanon, the whole population of Palestine, that somehow now, because we're not involved, we're not going to get the same treatment. And it's just, I don't understand how their brains work, how they function, how they think that's not going to be the case. So it's a difficult thing for them to grasp, or they just hate the Islamic Republic so much. But, they're not the majority. That's the good thing. The majority are with it, with the government. But, you get that. That's life. That's what
I mean, look,
happens.
people are people at the end of the day. You do get a mixture of views in a wide range of places, right? Even from Palestine, there's people who are very happy with the support Iran's given them, and then some are very negative towards Iran as well. So you do have this kind of mesh of people, right? Everywhere.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there is that part of it. But anyway, the thing is, I'm actually trying my best to do the work of the Lord, as they say, of God, because I truly believe that Israel are demons. The way they behave against people, the way they are raping people with dogs, with sticks. And I don't understand how anyone would want to have anything to do with any kind of peace deal with people that behave towards other human beings like that. And the fact that these people who are rapists are being celebrated in the news when you've got a whole nation going to these prisons or to the police stations or the army barracks saying you shouldn't hold anything against the soldiers that are raping these prisoners. It's a sick society. That's not a normal, humane society. So therefore, it's something that needs to be, we can't be on the same side as these people. There is no place on this earth that I could be on the same side as people that think it's okay to rape boys, girls, women, and whatever else in prisons with dogs, with sticks, with anything, and we're going to become a neutral to them, and ignore what they're doing to other people. It's just not possible for me as a person. But obviously, some people, their attitude is like, I don't know, maybe they're just racist. Maybe they're just absolutely racist against Arabs and other people, and that's just their mentality. Much in the same way as we've got right-wing racist people and black racist people who who just think of themselves as the super race and whatever else. You get them all sorts. So yeah, maybe I don't really know.
Well, really appreciate you, Haz, and hope things are well there. And yeah, please free to give us updates as and when you receive them.
Absolutely, my
Appreciate
brother.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That was Haz, yeah, all the way in Iran, putting his money where his mouth is, and supporting basically the defense against the American Israeli regime, or as some people call it, the Epstein class. Joe, hope you're doing well. How's it going?
Hey, first off, hats off to Haas. We agree on 95% of everything. But you have big balls, my friend. You really do.
Okay,
And I'm not surprised that of
Joe,
many
come on, let's
people.
not let's I know you're a liberal, but let's not make it gay, right? Please. Let's not talk about genitalia. But do continue.
Well, if you pictured it, you're the one who's gay, not me.
I didn't even picture it.
So I give you.
I just responded. I just told you to keep the space page if you can.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, you deserve a lot of respect, Haas. Look, Suleiman, you know my position that, and I don't know if Haas does, and I'm actually curious that this is all strategic for the U.S. to move the energy corridor to the west. And as of this week, EU just came out with a report saying that 80% of their LNG will be coming from the US by 2028. Louisiana just closed a $10 billion investment to start up an LNG plant. Remember what I said, it won't be long until Mexico talks about them opening up an LNG plant. The world is transitioning where petroleum was the king of mobility and energy. Right now, petroleum is the king of mobility. LNG is the king of power. These data centers are being powered by LNG. They are not being powered by diesel. Although you have some, one of the people who is the biggest energy expert on Spaces keeps telling people it's powered by diesel. It is not. It is by LNG. You can look it up. The power plants are LNG powered, not diesel powered. And you see moves happening that is basically that. And like I said, they don't want the strait open. They want a simmer. They want to reduce the amount of LNG production in that region so America can be number one. When you announced that there was a deal today, I was like, no way. I wasn't surprised that there was ships that came out today. That's gonna keep on happening. And I think as long as Iran doesn't have a retaliatory strike package that has been known for 20 years, which they knew, they're not going to attack Iran because what they wanted was for Iran to hit the LNG plants. I think that's exactly what they did. I think the move by Turkey today also shows that Turkey sold 80, almost 90% of their US bonds. It seems like they actually know what's going on, that they're not going to need dollars. And they're making the right move, it seems like, especially when you have it at a very high rate. It's a good time to sell. So good on them. I think it was a smart move. But that's honestly what I think is doing. And I'll keep looking every single day at evidence that the energy corridor is moving. And these are the two facts for the last 3-4 days of evidence that US is ramping up even more LNG, huge investment into an LNG plant in Louisiana. I really do expect Mexico to announce theirs, within a month. And we'll see what happens. And I don't think US is going to go anywhere for as long as they can. And remember, I kept telling you, Salman, I don't believe that the only way to reduce the rates on the bonds is to print. Look, what's happening to the bonds? They're going down. What are they doing? That's why I'm saying U.S. is not playing its normal game here. They're doing something. And yeah, maybe it could be the fact that Turkey sold so much of theirs that it went down, but it was going down yesterday too. So it can't be just that. Um, they are shifting global energy, and U.S. wants to own it, and that's what's happening. And I honestly think,
Well,
for
why has the
Haas's
bond
sake,
prices dropped?
what
Why did you say the bond prices have dropped?
I said, it won't be just from printing. We haven't printed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Turkey sold 90% of their U.S. bonds.
Mm.
Okay, which could have driven the price down. It would have, but it was going down already, so it can't be just from that.
Mm.
And I really think Israel is in a fight, wrongfully so, but in a fight for relevance. I think Israel is a forward base of America for the Middle East, and if America no longer cares about the energy in the Middle East, then what happens to Israel? And if Israel doesn't normalize and get rid of the strongest faction against them, they're going to be left with nothing to do, like in a
Wait,
really
so
bad spot.
just 1 second. So Turkey sold its US bonds.
Yes.
But isn't that a problem if people start selling off their bonds?
Yep. To a
Explain.
degree, because you want to keep dollar dominance, right? But as people start to realize what's really happening, because all the evidence really points towards it. So I'm on, like, everything is pointing towards it, that this was strategically done, knowing that Iran would attack where they would attack, because they have announced it for many years that if you hit this, we hit this. If you hit that, we hit that. And they basically triggered it to harm GCC, and the GCC doesn't even know it yet, or maybe now they do because now they're starting to say, "Hey, wait a minute." So I don't know why they're saying that. That could be why. But yeah, if people start selling off U.S. bonds, U.S. has a bigger problem. Um, but so far, Turkey's really the only one that moved forward. It seems like they're the smart
How
guys in
is
the
this
room.
harm the GCC? Isn't Saudi Arabia almost in a better situation than it was before?
How's it in a better situation? The U.S. is going to use Iran to strike the countries they want in order to reduce their capacity. That's what they've done.
So why did we
So,
stop the war, Joe? Like we could have kept going and kept destroying infrastructure if that's the case.
Because you can't stop. If you stop it completely, then you're really messed up. You got to reduce by like 20-30%, and then US becomes the global leader. Because don't
just
forget, US can do a lot with LNG. It can't do as much with oil, right? And that's the problem.
so just a quick one, Joe. And guys, do follow the link in the nest. It is the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following the YouTube channel. It's growing very fast. Be a part of the movement, especially if the banner's on X. YouTube will be the only way we're able to do these. But Joe, I thought Saudi Arabia are actually doing better because if you look at it, they weren't hit that much. Their oil production is reduced slightly, but actually they're making similar, if not more, money because of the
Y-
increase in oil prices.
Yeah, but the problem in the Middle East is LNG. It's not the oil, right?
Right, but is
It's the
Saudi Arabia?
LNG. It's the LNG.
How much do they produce? How much LNG do they
They're
produce?
not a huge producer of LNG, so they're
Exactly.
not really a big problem. I mean, they're benefiting because there's more, like, you sell for a higher quantity, but that's not what the future holds, because a lot of the infrastructure will move to the west.
And how does the Gulf lose out? Because, like for example, Qatar, from my understanding, the deal that Qatar had, you know, the what was it? What's it called again? What's it called again?
Salima.
No, not Ras Al Khaimah. That's UAE. Ras Lisan is that something? The one.
Russ
No,
Lafan.
Ras Laffan,
Russ
thank you.
Lafan.
Ras
Mhm.
Laffan in Qatar. From my understanding, if I remember from the top of my head,
Mhm.
the ownership of that was 55% Qatari,
Mhm.
45% American. And I
Mhm.
believe the replacement plan in the United States of America has more Qatari ownership.
They don't care about the ownership. They care about where it's coming from, and is it on their territory so they can control it. Because right now, basically, the world was built on oil, right? Or at least America was built on oil, right? The discovery of oil is what really set off the boom of America. Okay. Um, that is shifting from oil to LNG. Okay. Um, because of that opportunity, U.S. has a way to become the leading player in LNG, right? Whereas we were the leading buyer in oil, right? So what happened is Saudi Arabia, Qatar, that whole region had a lot of influence on how the dollar was priced, what the dollar would do. They could increase or decrease production, which would affect the American economy. So you had basically foreign countries that could affect the U.S. economy because everything was priced in the dollar. Once you have LNG in America, that can no longer happen. America is not only in control of how strong their dollar or how weak their dollar is, they're also in control of the energy. You see what I mean? And if you look, if it's not going to hurt them, a lot of the LNG was going to Europe, right? After Russia. Well, now 80% of LNG is going to be coming from USA by 2028. That's a huge shift.
But Joe, for that to hold true, the strait needs to remain closed for indefinitely, and also 20% of the production of LNG has not gone
Not
down.
indefinitely. Not indefinitely.
Yes, but then the U.S. doesn't hold the monopoly on LNG.
You just keep it closed until you close enough contracts, Cyrus.
And I mean, then they'll activate again. It's an open market. People will go to cheaper sources of energy, and the cost of production in the United States is substantially higher by multiple folds. So it doesn't work like that. I mean, this thesis that this war was all
That's why you need to. This is why you need to
orchestrated, and
reduce the capacity of LNG in the Gulf.
yeah, but that's by
If you
destroying it. But they hit
no,
one area, caused 30 billion in damage, and the war stopped. So the United States does not want to see that happen. Otherwise, they would have continued. They would have at least let it go on for another few days. Let's hit some more, gas fields, because if that's what they want, it's just nothing demonstrates that. That, like, this
you
is
just
not. None of this is
Cyrus,
planned.
you just shut off 20. Look, if you hit South Pass, you're going to hit the LNG plant in Qatar. It's the same actual reservoir, right? And it's the same deal. And they've said it for 20 years. You hit South Pass, we're hitting this, right? It's exactly what happened. That's 20% of the world's LNG.
Yeah, but it's
They
not
took.
gone. They're still
They
producing, and once the strait is
No,
open,
they're
it's back.
not. It's
It's back
completely
to
offline.
it's back to business as normal, right? I mean,
20% of the world's LNG is done already.
that's not what the numbers show. It's still, I mean, 8% of Qatar's GDP has been reduced. So you can argue Qatar's been down by 8%, but those numbers are not accurate.
But Cyrus, 8%, but then you also have 100% increase in the price of gas and oil.
And that's by function of the
S-
shortages. So, and that's temporary and it's artificial. For your thesis to work, this needs to happen indefinitely, right? You need to take
No,
20%
you don't need
offline
it
indefinitely.
indefinitely.
So
You
then,
don't need
then,
it
then they'll
indefinitely.
open up. I mean, contracts. You're saying the contracts are done, so then they won't be able to sell their natural gas. That's just not how it works. It's an open market, So, and cost of production is very high in the United States. The world runs on cheap
I
energy.
agree. That's why you need.
Our economic growth will be stunted if oil stays above 100. America wants oil to be around 60.
Look, I didn't. One thing I've said over and over and over, I don't know if America will be successful. I don't think it will. But the fact that they're trying to do it, and you can keep the prices of LNG or oil high, you can by reducing the supply of it. Would they want to completely destroy that area? No. They only want to reduce it a bit and enough to keep it closed enough so they can close new contracts. So now you'll see. I'm sure there's going to be a contract with Europe that's like a 20-year contract, 25-year contract for delivering LNG. That's going to happen. And if that happens, then you know. And then after you see the contract, then you'll see talks about reopening the strait and having peace and blah blah blah. And we did regime change, and now these people are working with us. Da, da, da. They know better because I'm big bad Trump. After those contracts are closed,
And no country that
watch.
is sensible will sign a
Chi-
contract amidst a artificial
well,
crisis. They're gonna wait to see it through. Who's gonna sign a 20-year
okay. Well,
contract
China
during an
China
elevated
seems
crisis?
China seems like they're about to sign a contract, Cyrus. They just said that they're sending 6 ships every month to Texas to get LNG. So where's that coming from? Did that happen before? No, it didn't.
Yeah, for now, I don't see a 20-year deal. Hey, for the next 20 years, we're only going to buy
Okay.
from you at elevated prices. I mean, let's see those deals come through. No one's signing a 20-year contract amidst an artificial crisis. Everyone is on their toes, walking on eggshells to see when this thing ends. This is an out of control crisis, and Trump is desperately trying to take an off ramp. They're
When
just
you
stuck right now.
when you only have 20% of the world supply active right now, you'll sign any contract to get LNG in your hand.
Let's see. I'll wait for a 10-year contract. No one's going to sign it. We'll wait. It'll
Okay,
roll
we'll
out in the
see.
next few weeks. I mean, we'll be proven right or wrong. Nobody knows for
I
sure.
mean, Europe is basically projecting it when they say 80% of their LNG is going to be coming from the US by 2028.
And
That
that's
just came
by
out 2 days ago.
that was because of the Nord Stream, and that was by plan. The United States destroyed the Nord Stream to both undermine Russia and to bring
Okay.
Europe more in their orbit. They didn't want, but when it comes to
And was
like the
that
overall
beneficial?
global,
Was that beneficial for America?
absolutely. I mean, it was good for America, terrible for
Okay.
Europe.
So do you think if they cut off another LNG supply, is that good for America?
But that's one pipeline they could hit, and it was a direct
Okay.
relationship between
Okay.
the Strait of
And
Hormuz
another one.
represents the entire GCC. It's not one country, and it's not one pipeline, right? So it's not the same. You can't draw the same parallel.
Okay, but is it a good thing that they shut it off for America?
I don't think long term. I think short term, if you want to look at it, hey, Russia's weaker, Europe is more in our pocket. I mean, I think that's a very narrow viewpoint. So you can make that case. I don't think so. I think it's detrimental to the United States. I think Nord Stream was good. It provided Europe cheap energy, especially Germany. Germany's the industrial
Yeah, I
base of Europe.
agree. I
So,
agree.
and we want a strong Europe. If America was smart, they want a strong Europe,
I
right? But
think Europe should have stood up and kicked their ass and been like, "F you, we're selling your bonds and we're not working with you anymore, and we're getting off of SWIFT."
yeah,
That's what I think they should have done when they
they're
blew up the
beholden
pipeline.
to they're beholden to the regional hegemon. America rules the Western Hemisphere. They're beholden to us.
Yeah.
I wish they did too. It's bad for America. If Europe stood up for itself, it would benefit America because we're making terrible decisions and Europe is going along with it every time.
Yeah, but politicians know that they're being sold up the river. That's what's crazy. Is European politicians, some say it publicly, some do not, have been saying that we have been getting attacked by America for 10 years now, and they are. Whether it's increasing interest rates after flooding the market with dollars, which basically exports the U.S. inflation to Europe, or attacking the oil fields, or getting us into these wars, or pressuring us with NATO when NATO is just really a U.S. Thing. It's not a European thing. Um, you know, for so many reasons. But to think that blowing up Nord Stream was good for America, and you're saying closing off Hormuz is not good for America for the same exact reason, I think you have a blind spot, dude.
Yeah, but it works for America because it undermines Russia and it makes Europe even more dependent on us, right? So it doesn't necessarily benefit us directly, right? It's a perceived benefit. What you're
If you
proposing,
think it's Europe,
what you're proposing, it brings the entire global LNG pull to the United States, and it will not work. At least you agree it won't work because I don't think that's the plan because it's so clear that they cannot keep the strait closed forever. Production will come back online. Qatar is a LNG powerhouse. Iran is a huge producer. So these are natural market forces. It will find an equilibrium. This is just an artificial crisis. And Trump didn't anticipate this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have double blocked the blockade. He wants the posture that he has some control. He does not want this, right? This does not benefit anybody.
Hormuz is not for Europe, Cyrus. It affects Europe a little bit. Hormuz is so U.S. can sell to Asia.
I'm not talking about Europe. I'm talking about the global LNG
You
market.
literally said Europe 1,000 times about the
We
Hormuz.
we were literally talking about Nord Stream and how if it benefited America, and I told you it's short-sighted. All it does is make the Europeans more beholden to the United States, and it undermines Russia on paper. It's not a benefit to the United States. It's a neocon line, right? If you're a neocon, you think it's a W, just like they think this war is a W. It's a fallacy. It's not a W.
Look, I'm a humanitarian. I think all this is sick. But when you look at the numbers, blowing up Nord Stream helped one country, USA. That's who it helped. Okay. They sold more
What did it help?
LNG.
How did it help?
They sold more goods to Europe.
At what cost? At a higher cost, and it weakens Europe,
It
and
doesn't
it
cost
makes their
America more, it costs Europe more.
Europe is a huge asset to the United States as a huge ally. If a weakened Europe is bad for America.
You think Trump thinks US that Europe is an ally?
Trump doesn't represent the United States. Trump is an anomalous president that is off his
He's the one in
marbles.
power, dude. So what are
Yeah,
you talking about?
for 2.5 more years.
Okay,
He's
but
not
he
king.
does not.
He's not king. You know that, right? He's not a king. There's still other people that need to, get in on this.
Yeah, I'm not stupid, but I also
No
know
kings, no
that he might
kings.
be king one day.
No, continue. I was just saying no kings.
You got really excited, Salman. Yeah, look, Trump does not treat Europe like an ally. Trump, that's the opposite of ally. I mean, Trump doesn't even treat Canada like an ally, much less Europe. So no, he does not see them. He looks at America. He looks at America as omnipotent. We are the ones who rule, and we don't need anyone else, right? So if we sacrifice Europe, which by the way, Nord Stream wasn't under Trump, it was under Biden. And Biden projected that as well. He said, "Oh, if you attack, we're going to blow up Nord Stream. We're going to blow up Nord Stream. We're going to blow up Nord Stream." Why would he blow up Nord Stream? Right? Because it's the same side of the coin every single time. We have been working towards taking over energy for years. And yes, you can say, oh, this was all for Israel. Possibly, if we were to keep that there, yeah, you can look at it that way because Israel does benefit. Or you can look at it like, okay, LNG is definitely going to be the transition fuel for the future. Most people think that's renewables like a European thing. Go look at how much investment are in renewables in the USA. LNG is what gets you to that transition. Countries like Japan, already LNG is what all power is coming from pretty much, and nuclear. And then renewable, well, nuclear is renewable, so part of renewable. US is going to be next. Europe is shortly following after them. That is the power for the future. For the
Joe,
next
there's
foreseeable
no
future.
doubt the importance of LNG. You mentioned the data centers being run on LNG. You have to be able to answer this. So as we foresee and forecast this demand, the rise in demand for LNG due to the data centers, don't you think it would be smarter to you, instead of sending our LNG to Europe, to put it in our own power plants to power our data centers, and not go through the very expensive transport costs to Europe, and allow Nord Stream
But
to
you
fuel
make it
Europe
seem like
cheaply?
America's paying for the transport. Europe pays for the transport.
But listen, with that, it's a zero-sum game. That fuel leaves America. It could be used in our, energy
Where are they going to
infrastructure,
where are they going to store it
right?
if we have a surplus?
What's surplus? I mean, we know how much we can produce. We
Yeah,
control that. The
we have a
production is highly
surplus.
calibrated. It's highly calibrated. It's a resource, right? You can tap it at a higher rate. You know, it's a finite resource, right? So it's how much you choose to pull out of the ground. Don't you think it'd be better we keep that here for America? So this is just an intrinsic from the deep Russophobia America has, that is the remnants of the Cold War. That's why we blew up Nord Stream. There's no logical reason for us to be bellicose towards Russia. It's one of the biggest strategic mistakes the United States made to
If you
push
if
Ukraine into NATO. This war was created by us expanding NATO. It could have easily been avoided.
I don't think people realize, okay, 2015, just 10 years ago, basically, U.S. exported zero point 0.5 tons, metric tons, zero point 0.5, right? As of 2024, not even 2026, 2024, we were at 87 metric tons. Do you understand that you don't go, 160x unless it's part of a plan? Right? And you're making it seem like, oh, they should just keep it in the ground and save it
That's still a
until we're
fraction of
ready.
the global LNG market. I mean, even if the U.S. shut down everybody, like it doesn't work like that. The moment the strait is open, the equilibrium will find itself. This is not how global markets work. There's a
So
ton of natural gas outside of the U.S.
sometimes I feel like you argue just to argue. Do you understand that in order for like Walmart to work, they need warehouses, and those warehouses need ships that go to China, and then those executives go to China and be like, hey, if you want to sell this TV at my place, you're going to make it for $47 instead of $56, and that's how it works. So if you don't have the infrastructure to supply Walmart, things don't get done. Same thing goes for energy. If you don't have the structure to ship, make, store everything else, the power, then guess what? Then you don't sell that much. US has been building up this capacity for the past 10 years. We've made moves in order to support this, and both Biden and Trump have both been part of making those moves to make sure America does it.
And if you look at those numbers or those production increases, it's still a drop in the bucket where you're making it seem like the U.S. just can come online and take over the energy markets. No energy analyst will agree with you.
Cyrus,
The numbers don't back up. The
yes, you
numbers don't
do.
back up your
Yes, you
thesis.
do. You know why? Because I said the West is going to control LNG, right? Mexico has a huge liquid natural gas port that they have shut down. Argentina is the fastest growing LNG producer in the entire
You know
West.
why they shut
Do
it
you
down? It's
understand how
production
much is
costs.
coming
It's
online?
production costs. It's much
Yes,
cheaper in the Middle East.
exactly.
It's much cheaper in the Middle
Yes,
East. So
exactly.
when it
And
opens up, people will go to the cheaper source. That's why they shut down Mexico, because they couldn't the
they
logic
don't pay the price.
they couldn't
The price
justify
is
it.
not paid by the source. Price is paid by how much is available in the system.
Exactly.
So if you reduce the amount that's available in the system by hitting 272 different LNG plants in Russia, or by attacking Iran, so then Iran attacks other LNG places, then guess what? You just reduce the amount of LNG in the system, so you're allowed to charge more for it, regardless if you have people getting it from the sand or people getting it from Texas. The cost that you sell it for is the same no matter where it comes from.
It's temporary. It's just because the strait is closed, and it proves my point how important
Okay.
that GCC is as an LNG source. The whole world relies on it, right? So no,
Does anyone but Cyrus know how long it's going to take to fix the LNG plant in Qatar? Can someone please speak up? Because, Cyrus seems to think it's fixed in a month and it just goes right back to
it's
normal.
3 years. I've been saying for weeks it's going to take 3 years to fix
3 years.
it, right?
3 years.
3 years to fix it, and that's why they
8 years.
stopped the attacks, right? That's why they stopped.
8 years. 8
So
years.
why did they do the ceasefire? If this is good, if they wanted to reduce the output, why would they stop at one hit on Pars and one hit on the Qatari field? Then they would continue going. This makes no sense. This does not fit your narrative.
Because if you have a total collapse of LNG, then you have a serious problem. You cannot have the whole world's economy collapse because LNG now costs 5 times what the cost it used to cost. Do you understand? You just want a competitive edge. You don't want to kill the global economy so that you can sell LNG.
None of that makes sense to me.
How doesn't it make sense? If I have LNG and I'm like, go ahead, wipe out all the LNG in the Middle East, guess what? I'm going to be charging 10 times the price for LNG. And you know what's going to happen in the global economy? It's going to shut down because people aren't going to have money for anything else. That's not what you want. You want it to sell more expensive so that you're a player and you can sell it, but you don't want to kill everyone's income so that, the global economy still keeps moving forward and we can go into a global depression.
Yeah, Trump got into this war saying it's going to take 5 days, 7 days. We're going to decapitate them. People will rise up. They had no idea. Trump was so caught up in his own BS that he really didn't think Iran was going to close the Strait of Hormuz. This was not in the playing cards. Trump is reeling. He's panicking, and he's looking for an off ramp. Your thesis,
Can anyone else
your
look?
thesis is just
I'd love
a
I'd
pie in
love
the
to
sky.
know. I'd love to know if anyone on the panel, please show of hands, the thumbs up. Did anyone on the panel believe that the US did not know that Iran would close the strait after saying it for 20 years that they would close the strait? Yeah, no one here believes that, Cyrus. Everyone knows the US
One person
knows
gave a
Iran would
thumbs
close the
down, and he
strait.
probably give a thumbs down to you. So that's look. You can
No,
have
they can.
if it's
Zena can speak.
if 1,000 people here gave you a thumbs up, I would still 1,000 wrong people don't make it right, right? So you can say whatever you want. Nobody who's in the game believes what you're saying. It's nonsense. I'm telling you, Joe. With all due respect, it's not how the world. That's not
Cyrus,
how the world works, man.
with all due respect, before this happened, we all said they would close the strait. We are not maybe we're smarter than the people in the government, but we don't have more foresight into what governments would do. I'm pretty sure everyone in the government, if everyone on here was in agreement that they would close the strait, that the government knew they would close the strait. No one was surprised that they closed the strait.
Yeah, the Pentagon wasn't. The war games, all the war games indicated, all the smart people said it, but Trump went in with Israeli intelligence. They said Iranians are ready to take over the country. We're here to help. We're going to kill your leaders. It was all nonsense. They did not anticipate this. And it will open up. So for your thesis to work, they need to maintain a closed strait or a
I keep telling you that's not true.
very restricted flow to reduce it by quote unquote 20%. It doesn't work like that. It will go back
What
to
does
normal.
that?
It will go back
It
to
sounds like a
normal.
frozen conflict, doesn't it?
It goes back when it goes back to normal.
Doesn't that sound like a frozen conflict that you keep saying is happening?
The frozen conflict is happening. The frozen conflict, we're in it, right? So we are in the frozen conflict, and the Strait of Hormuz being closed is part of it, right? I think they're going to open it up. They're going to get in these long negotiations. It has to settle. The United States will not.
No, it's not. It's not closed when 30 ships go through it today.
Go look at the
Do you
number.
understand?
Go look at the number of normal flow and what's going through now. It's a fraction. It's like 10% of
Yeah,
what it's supposed to be.
exactly. Restricting supply. If it
And
was
that's by Iran.
closed, that would
And
be a
Iran is
problem for the
skirting it.
US. If it was
And Iran is
completely
skirting
closed,
this.
that would be a problem for US. If they actually closed it, that would be a problem for the US. But that's not what they're doing. They're letting ships through.
Yeah, it's all ships headed for China, and it's Iran is skirting it by staying to the territorial waters of Pakistan and
Yes,
India,
it's
and
all ships that relieve the pressure valve on the price of energy.
and the U.S. can board those ships, right? So they're not doing it. It's
They're not
benefiting
boarding them.
it's benefiting China. This is China imposing their power, right? That the U.S. is too scared to board those ships. If those ships were headed to somewhere else, they would have boarded them, right? It's China's ability to posture on the U.S. and impose their will on the energy markets, right? This will end. This crisis will end. The Strait will open up for business, and the U.S. LNG market cannot compete with cheap Qatari LNG to power. You need Qatar. You
Okay,
need Russia for the
so it's
next
not going to
phase.
be so to you it's not going to be because you've been saying for the past 2 weeks it's a frozen conflict, right?
Yeah, more than
Now
2 weeks.
it's not going to be a frozen conflict.
I've been saying it. I've
Now
been
it's going
saying
to
it
end.
every day. I've been saying every day it's going to be a frozen conflict.
Okay,
But
so when does it end?
during this phase, the Strait will open up for business. You'll see the Strait of Hormuz open up for business in the next few weeks. That they will
What's a
reach
few
an
weeks?
MOU.
In two
They
weeks?
will
Three
they will
weeks?
reach it. Who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, man. I predicted today's announcement. I said third
Well,
week of May, right? So I thought it would be open by now. And as you see, the announcement that came today, number one line on the announcement, the Strait of Hormuz will be open for business until we figure out the new nuclear deal. That's what I've been predicting, and it seems to be coming true. Everyone's been saying we're going to reinitiate hostilities except me. So far I've been right
no,
that the
not
war is
except
not.
you, because I've been saying
The,
since the very first ceasefire that there will be no more kinetic strikes.
well, you're the only one other than me saying this, right? And but your thesis is it's the corporations doing it, not America.
No, I don't think it's. I'm not like Simon. I don't think it's corporations. I think it's a last Hail Mary the U.S. is trying to do in order to control the global reserve currency. And what they're doing is instead of trying to force the countries to do it, they'll control the energy. That way they never need to worry about it. Elon Musk's comment from a few months ago when he said in 2027, energy would be currency now becomes true, which is a comment that's always bothered me because I didn't know what he meant by that because that's a big statement. Now that becomes true because now LNG is currency because they are one and the same once US controls LNG.
But for your theory to work, Joe, this needs to continue, right? So when production comes back online,
No, it does
this
not.
strategy won't work. When Qatar dumps tons of energy on
You keep
NL,
saying that, but it doesn't. It doesn't. You need to weaken the production. You sign new contracts. Now Qatar has no reason to increase production because they don't have the contracts to sell to.
we'll see. We're
Right?
gonna find out.
And you can't just be like, oh, we're gonna sell cheaper. It doesn't work that way. It has to do with supply.
Nobody's signing a 20-year contract and amidst a global energy crisis, so they commit to higher prices from a foreign source. Nobody's going to do that. Everyone's waiting to get their favorite cheap fuel from the Middle East and go back to business as normal. And the U.S. needs cheap oil and cheap gas. We need it to keep growing our fast-growing economy. We're built on $60 oil. We're not built for $100 oil, right? That's why your thesis doesn't make sense because does
If
not
it's
benefit the United States. This is slowing our growth. It's
is
increasing inflation.
$60
It's increasing inflation. This is having a detrimental effect on our economy here in the U.S. already.
is $60 oil profitable for US?
It's profitable. Yeah, they pump enough oil at that rate, depending on where they get it from, whether it's shale, whether it's other sources. Like it's,
No, even at shale, even at
I don't
shale.
know the exact numbers, but I think the break even was
Yeah.
like $55. It's
At
not much. 55.
55 shale
Yeah,
stops.
55
Yeah.
exactly. So it's barely
Okay.
profitable.
Okay. Yeah, but it's profitable. They'll do it. They'll
Yeah,
have it
they'll
open.
do
They'll
it, and they
produce
need
as
it,
much as you
and
want.
they need it, right? We
Right.
need $60 oil for the global economy to keep kicking ass. We've been on a rampage. The global economy has been on a run. So why screw it up, right? It benefits nobody, even the global elites, right? We need business to go back to normal.
Because the demand for petroleum is going to go down as the demand for LNG goes up, and America wants to be the leader in
It's a zero
LNG.
sum game. The demand for LNG going up is for the data centers, but you still need ship fuel.
It's
You
not
need
just for the
diesel.
data centers.
You need diesel fuel. You need jet fuel. There's a lot more
I
than just LNG for the world doesn't circle around
I
data
did
centers, right?
I did work for a power company about 10 years ago, okay, consulting. I'm not an LNG guy. I'm a marketing innovation guy. And they wanted to reposition their brand because they were very much seen as oil and not gas. So they wanted to sell the fact that gas is going to be the transition energy. And they walked me through the whole process of why that has to be and why that the whole world is going to go to LNG, right? The third world countries are going to go start consuming much more petroleum like China and India, but the first world country are going to go to almost all LNG, right? And in Europe, you're going to have almost no petroleum within the next decade because most of the cars have to be electric by then because of what they put in place, right? So it's going to be LNG and electric renewables. And you have many countries, for example, Portugal, which runs over 85% on renewables, right? And there's other countries coming online that are trying to do the same thing.
Our
LNG
energy grids can't
is the
support
one thing.
our energy grid can't support both here in Europe can't support the electric cars, and it's a zero sum game. You have to burn fossil fuels to make the energy. We're not ramping up nuclear that fast to
You
have this
burn
whole
LNG.
to have exactly. So there's more demand for LNG that's going to burn it, and it's going to fuel the electric cars. And you have now new demand for the data centers. So you need production. You need Qatar online. The world runs on cheap fuel. Your thesis is
I
saying
never said you didn't. I never said you don't need production. That's why I keep telling you you wouldn't bomb all the countries. Can we get other people in here though to get an opinion? Some the Cyrus, so they don't just hear us. Zena had put a thumbs down before. I don't know if she put a thumbs down to me or you, but let's find out.
Xena represents the whole space apparently.
But I'm just picking on someone that has their hand up. Jesus, go ahead, Zena.
I don't represent the whole space. I actually have a lot of opinions that contradict a lot of people on this space. But thank you, Cyrus, for the vote of confidence. No, my thumbs down was to the comment about that nobody predicted that the Strait of Hormuz would be closed and all of this. Just absolutely ludicrous. It's been reported in all kinds of government reports and briefings and speculations and pundits and all kinds this since the time of the Houthis ramp up that this was a possibility. So I don't know why anybody would think it's a surprise, but the reason this field is a little bit out of my depth. I actually had questions, so if you wanted to go to somebody else that could answer or respond to you, and then I can wait to ask my questions. 1 or 2 weeks later, there was a tender for bids for exploration in Gaza. And when the Netzarim corridor was established in Gaza, there was some discussion in other channels about the Netzarim corridor aligning with where the Netzarim or the Ben Gurion Canal was proposed. And I'm wondering if, with all this talk about IMEC and trade routes and alternative sources for energy, if any of this is part of the conversation or if there is a connection. And I have one more question, and then I'm just going to listen back because, like I said, this is really out of my field. But with all the discussions about the toll passage through the Strait of Hormuz, I don't understand why it's an issue in the Strait of Hormuz where the idea of collecting a toll through passage, whereas there's definitely tolls in this through the Suez, through Panama. So this isn't an anomaly collecting tolls. Why is it different with the Strait of Hormuz? Is it because who the benefactor would be, or is there a different set of circumstances in the Strait of Hormuz versus those other examples? So just those two questions, but thank you very much.
Thanks, that, Joe. Joe, what were the questions? I didn't hear them because I was the YouTube sound went and they were all crying.
I was researching because she was asking you the question. So,
what was the question? What was the question again?
If you don't mind, if I can jump in, I think I might know it. I might know the answer to a little bit.
Well, let her repeat the question first. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
So there were two questions. The first was in relation to the gas that was off the coast of Gaza and the gas exploration bids that were tendered right after October 7th, and with regards to like the Netzarim corridor and the Ben Gurion Canal, that was the overlay one over the other. If there was a connection with this and with IMAC and how this fits into the bigger picture of the conversation. And the second question was, how is the collection of tolls through the Strait of Hormuz different than the collection of tolls in Panama and Suez, if it was a different set of circumstances, or if the point of connection was who the benefactor was?
Yeah, I don't think it's any different. I think that this is why Iran has a valuable or logical right to the claim that they're making in terms of taking control over the Strait of Hormuz. In terms of the energy that you're referring to in Gaza, I did see that there are many reports about it. It's highly likely it's right, although there is a bit of distance away from Gaza about it. But I haven't seen any movement on that recently. But obviously, this is going to be part of the Gaza Riviera plan, and this is why they want to take over Gaza. But if you saw my interview with Dmitry Laskaris, I basically said that IMEC basically with the Iran taking over the Strait of Hormuz, IMEC is basically dead. And obviously, if they give it back, then it's a different scenario. But Anna, you wanted to add something to that?
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Yeah, I basically just wanted to stillman your argument that it does seem as though, the Kushner family, the World Economic Forum, the usual suspects are definitely trying to, loot the place. And the fact that they have been working on these oil fields off the Leviathan, the timing is definitely a major concern, especially given the fact that they have been working on this new Gaza and this, some people call it the Greater Israel Project. Some people call it the IMEC. They're all very much related to the same development aspirations of the Kushner and, by virtue of that, Trump family. So it's definitely something that people have taken notice of. And although it does seem absolutely ludicrous for them to, think that they're going to make leeway like with the IMEC, it's still very much a focus. It's something that Jared Kushner was speaking about specifically during Davos this year. And it was something that they began to put into motion when they signed the 2020 Abraham Accords, which were facilitated by Jared Kushner during Trump's first term. And just so you know, a little context with that is that right after Trump was not reelected and he left office, the very next day is when the Kushner family went and established that Affinity Partners that got that same day investment of $2 billion to get a good start from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. So there is certainly a connection. And yeah, I appreciate that you're making it. Thank you for bringing it up.
Zena,
Thank you, Anna, so much.
Zena,
I
I have a
hope to
couple
hear
comments for
you.
you. I have a couple comments regarding the Strait of Hormuz. It may shed some insights. So the difference between the canals you listed, the Suez Canal, and I think you mentioned one with the Panama Canal. Those are small bodies of water, and they don't fall under the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea, right? So it's all about free navigation, and Iran is a signatory to that. So anybody who signs that document, which most countries have, get to use the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf as they can navigate it freely, and it's open for business and commerce. And it's by law, it's not supposed to be tolled. So Iran is making a claim now because of the current situation, and they're making some legal claims. It wouldn't stand. They've already made a motion in the United Nations to discuss this. Iran won't win the legal war, but so that's why the urgency to get the maximum deal they can before there is lashback from the international community. Iran is right now held very favorably in the current conflict. Most countries see it as the victim, and the U.S. as the belligerent. So as time progresses, if Iran continues to impose on the Strait, eventually it will create resentment in the international community. So I don't think Iran wants to toll the Strait as a primary goal. Otherwise, they would have done it. They had the capability to close the Strait for many years, and they would have done it if that was an objective. And they've been under sanctions. They could have said, hey, we're suffering greatly, so we have to do this, right? So I don't think it's a primary objective of Iran, but they will use it as a lever. And more importantly, if the United States does not sign a favorable deal, I think Iran will impose tolls. I think it's
Okay, Cyrus, just chill on the filibustering, dude. This is a conversation. We just, let people give back and forth because you are giving good information. But I do think it is important for us to think about the fact that international law is not a major consideration of a country that we attacked illegally. Okay, so there's not that argument is it's not real. The part of international law that is real is the fact that Russia just recently made moves to have the money that they have had tied up in European banks that looks like that's going to come through. So there is a real restructuring of the global, like of the world's order. It's happening right now. And so to think that America holds all of the leverage and Iran is just viewed globally as this, victim country. No, victimization is Israel's thing. Okay, let's try to stay focused. Iran is being viewed as someone who is stepping onto the world stage, which means that they are making very smart use of the leverage that they have in the moment. I'll land it there.
Iran's a victim of an
Could
attack,
I
right? Anyway, you cut it, they're a victim of an unprovoked attack. I'm not saying they're playing the victim, right? They've stood up pretty strongly and bravely to the aggression. So, and I'm not filibustering. I'm giving you factual information, teaching you about international maritime law. We have folks here on the panel to speak for 45 minutes. So, if you're not, if it's not well taken, I'm sure otherwise other people might enjoy the conversation. So.
So, listen, a couple of things. I do think that Iran does, and I disagree with this Iran on this, but I think in one element Cyrus is right, although I disagree with the other element. So, I think Iran does care about global perception, and I think, in my view, they care overly about it. Personally, I wouldn't care about it as much because perception doesn't save your country. But he is right. Iran does care about it a lot. And it's based on that they will and they are making some of their decisions based on that perception. That being said, in terms of the toll, where I disagree with you, Cyrus, is you're essentially making the claim that if Iran wanted to take the Strait, they could have taken it, and therefore they're not really that bothered about it. They're essentially only using it for leverage. That bit I disagree with. What's happened is obviously Iran always knew it had the ability to take control of the Strait of Hormuz, but for many of us who've covered this for a very long time, we knew that this was essentially their what would say that when the United States and Israel attacked in a major way, this was going to be their biggest lever to use, which they end up using. And so taking it earlier probably wouldn't have worked. And actually, if they'd taken it earlier and they'd taken it over something where they hadn't been attacked, because you're saying, oh, guess what? Because of sanctions, they could have just done it with the section. Well, if that had happened, global perception definitely would have not been on their side. People would have been supporting the American-Israeli invasion of them, and things maybe would have been a lot more different. right now was the perfect time to use it. They used it in the perfect method. But now that they've used it, first of all, international law says that they're allowed to use up to 12 kilometers of the Strait of Hormuz is under their control. So it is under the international law. They have control over it. But what they've essentially found out is that by taking control of the Strait of Hormuz, they've seen the world perception on their side. And now to give that control up would be a folly because they've understood the importance of it. They've understood the long term leverage over it. If you don't take control over it, if you leave it as international wars, other people, maligned actors, can start implementing things slowly in a Machiavellian way, and so it's very smart that when you have control over something, you keep the control. You don't allow it to be given away to anybody else or to be shared in any way. Now, when you've got the control over the Strait of Hormuz, as you've got it, there is so much benefit to it. It's not as simple as, oh, guess what? We're going to make $100 billion on the tolls and $20 billion on insurance and I don't know, X billion of dollars. But if you look at the entire apparatus that they're creating on it, now it could end up failing. I don't think it will, but the way they're creating it is a very long-term mode, a long-term method, and it will, if a scenario occurred where you can't trust the Americans about sanctions. Let's be clear on this. If you know history, they took the sanctions in 81 and they put the sanctions back on. Was it 83 or 84? It didn't take them long to remove sanctions, to put sanctions on. You can never trust the Americans and the Israelis when it comes to deals. They'll always break those deals. And so you can't give up all of these things just based on sanctions. So actually having the Strait of Hormuz as a long-term mode of making money is very important because you can make, let's say, 100 billion on the toll. You can make 20, 30 billion insurance. All the Bitcoin they're going to use, all the Bitcoin guys, I know I never had Joe's opinion on this, but all the rest of them, you saw Simon, he was getting so excited, it was unbelievable about it, because of the impact it'll have, how Bitcoin was now going to be used as a mode, how it would put Iran in the frontier of the world in the future. And then not only that, the amount of deals you're able to make overarching that because of the strait. For example, Japan and South Korea, you could be like, listen, you don't need to pay the $2 billion. Let's do this big, much more larger trade agreement. So the strait is much more valuable than you're saying. And actually, I would say more important than even the sanctions, to the extent of sanctions are but by the trust of the Americans and the Israelis, and they've shown themselves not to be trusted when it comes to those things historically. So I don't think it's just a lever point. I know you think it's just a lever, a leverage, and they're gonna just give it up. That's where I disagree. I think this, if they were to give it up, it would be one of the biggest follies they'd make. It'd be like dropping the ball on the 1 yard line after intercepting and running 99 yards.
So Lemma, I fully agree with you, but that's if it was a one shot. If they only had one bullet in the chamber and it's a one-time closure, you're 100% right. They should be gripping onto it for dear life. But they can do this anytime. So when they know the United States will not take an off-ramp until Iran opens it up for business, it's a key component of the negotiation. So Iran needs to show some flexibility, and so does the United States. I mean, the U.S. has to probably unfreeze assets. They have to do a lot of things. So it is a momentarily pause. It doesn't mean that they have to give up their ability to close the strait.
I
It's
don't agree with that, Cyrus. I know you made that point earlier. And yes, you can do it, but impact is really important, right? And so let's say you were to do it in 3 years' time or 2 years' time. By then, people have created new corridors. By then, people are trying to look for different avenues. By then, many other things will happen. And then the other thing is, by then people may not even be as amiable to do that. Right now you do have the world on your side. Later you may not have that. There may be more of a coalition against you if you don't have those things. That's the first problem. The second problem is, if you do take control of the Strait of Hormuz, shutting it can't happen again. And what I mean by that is, if you have control over it and you keep shutting the Strait of Hormuz, people cannot use the strait anymore. Like, you just can't use it because you can't trust it. Like, this move they've made is really a one-time move, in the sense of, it happens, people accepted it was a unique wartime situation. People then want to go back to the status quo. The status quo means safe passage of trade and safe passage of all these things. And only when you're able to do that will you get the world back into the situation it was in before. If there's a scenario where you've got, it's almost like, just think about it logically. Like if you went down a street and I don't know, someone was basically stopping you once. You're like, okay, you stopped me once, it's fine. But if you knew this guy with a gun was going to stop you every time, you're like, I'm not going to take that road anymore. Like, it may take me longer to take the other route, it may cost me more, but over time we need to build an alternative mechanism. It would be very bad for them to do that as well, what you're saying, to reshoot the strait in the future. This has to be a one-time thing that is used in the right way and then never used again.
Suleiman, you make a lot of salient points. I agree with a lot of what you said. However, we're not talking about 2-3 years. Iran has a short window to make a deal, and the deal outweighs any type of toll they get from the Strait of Hormuz. Iran stands to gain substantially from the lifting of sanctions. Their economy will go from 400 billion GDP to probably 1.5 trillion within a few years, within 2-3 years. So they stand to gain substantially from the sanctions being lifted. So 100% agree. If they try to redo this in 3 years, it won't have nearly the impact. I would argue, however, the corridors you speak of to bypass the strait, they're limited, right? You were talking the Fujairah pipeline, and
But just on that, I'm not talking about the first point you made. I'm not talking about you open it and then sorry, during the negotiations. I'm talking because this is your argument. Your argument is not about during the negotiations. I know that's your argument is during the negotiations as well. But I'm talking about, for example, let's say now America and Israel made a deal with Iran, and whatever the deal was, it is what it is. Then they open the Strait of Hormuz, and they don't have control over it. Is the point I'm making? A 1 year after that, US comes back in and bombs you, or US comes back in and attacks you. I'm saying in that scenario, it's a lot more difficult to then close the Strait of Hormuz. And then to have control over it again. Now you can probably make it, but if I was US, if I was Israel, I'll be making moves to make sure I prep for the situation. This time they weren't ready for it because of their ignorance and various other things. But I'd prep for it. And there's many different ways you can prep for it. Obviously, I'm not going to give them ideas, but there's many ways to prep for it to make sure that it has less of an impact than it did now. This just was the perfect move because of the lack of prep and understanding of what the situation was.
yeah, great points,
So let's go
Suleiman.
to.
I,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, you make very good points. It is definitely a powerful card now. It won't be nearly as powerful later. And my only assertion is that this is only, they'll open it up during these short negotiations, which I don't think will go longer than 6 months, maybe a little longer maximum, right? And if Iran doesn't get what they fairly deserve, they will place a toll. They'll probably make an agreement with Oman, and they will make it a new normal. They will do it. I have no doubt that they will do it if they don't get the deal. So I'm not just saying it's a lever. It's a real live play that they're willing to implement if they're treated unfairly. So we're saying very similar things. I think we have slight disagreements in how it will roll out, but you just don't think Iran should give it up right now and force the U.S. to enter negotiations with the Strait still being closed. My thing is the U.S. will never agree to that. They will not do that. They're too prideful, too arrogant. They will not do it. And Iran wants to get into the next phase of negotiations. They really want it. They want sanctions relief, more than anything. And they deserve it. It is an act of war. It's barbaric. It is draconian. It's crippling the everyday Iranian. You heard Hussein say it, right? He says he's talking about the poorer class. It's affected the middle class, right? The Iranian middle class is broken. They used to have a thriving middle class, right? So it's really heartbreaking to witness. I saw it firsthand. And you just keep the human toll in mind, and that Iran really wants, its citizens to not suffer, and the suffering
No,
is.
I agree with you. But look, let's be clear on this. Iranian citizens have suffered for a very long time. Very long time. And if this doesn't go the way they want, they'll make them suffer for a very long time. And so right now there may be more pain than there was before, but one needs to just accept it, knowing that if this goes the way they want, if Iran does succeed, they will become a powerhouse that is unheard of in terms of the ability, in terms of the escalation or acceleration factor, and then they will be sorted forever. So it's a tough spot if you're from Iran, for sure. Very tough spot. Um, but in a unique position where actually there is a huge light at the end of the window, and it's not actually even light; it's the ability to really dominate. So I agree with you. It's going to be tough, and this is why. Um, I mean, it was why I didn't agree with the ceasefire. You know my position on the ceasefire. I didn't think it was a good decision. But yeah, these are factors that obviously the leadership needs to consider. Fair points. Let's go to Trauma. Go ahead, Trauma, jump in. Okay, let's go to Al-Farsi. Al-Farsi, jump in.
Oh yeah, I'm good for right now. You can pass.
Okay, just don't request if you don't want to speak, bro.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought Trauma was gonna jump in. So to your point about the tolls being illegal, Cyrus. Yeah, I mean tolls are illegal in international waterways, but their loophole is transit fees. If you are facilitating transit in a waterway is legal, and I feel like that's the reason why the toll word has kind of started to fade away. Even the Persian Gulf Strait Authority has stopped using the word toll, to my understanding, in favor of transit fees.
They call it environmental fees, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to get the globalist left on your side as well, right? Frame it in sort of a greenwash it, right?
Joe's
Pinkwash
on board
it.
now. Joe's on board.
Yeah, the WEF crowd is on that is on the side of that, right? But in addition to that, I mean, here's the thing. I think Iran's goal ultimately, and they're achieving this, their goal should be not necessarily full sanction relief. It should be facilitating the transition away from American economic hegemony over the world. And I've seen multiple analysts talk about how America right now, from a militaristic perspective, has kind of started to lose its hegemony, but soon it's going to be total loss of American economic hegemony over the world. Ryan Grimm was talking about this in his interview with Dave Smith recently. The goal should be, okay, American sanctions, whatever. America can sanction us. It doesn't matter. We live in a multipolar society now.
It does
Russia,
matter, though.
China,
It does matter, though. The secondary sanctions post-Trump, the maximum pressure sanctions, broke the Iranian economy's back.
yeah,
Before that,
right now they do. Right now they do.
since 2018. So Suleiman said Iranians have suffered for
Sure.
a long, long time. They've suffered, but not to this level. There's a clear distinction
Agreed.
between the secondary sanctions. So that's a real thing, and the U.S. can impose these draconian measures. So
Hey,
it's not a.
I understand.
So
I understand.
sanctions do matter.
And I'm not
There's people starving. There's people not getting medicine. There's people dying. So
okay.
they do
If you can let
matter.
me talk, if you can let me talk, please, I'd appreciate it. I'm not saying sanctions don't matter, and yeah, sanctions have ramped up, especially in Trump 1, and it continued under Biden, and it's only gotten worse, right? I'm not saying American sanctions don't matter right now. I'm saying Iran's goal should be not sanctions relief, but to completely dampen America's ability to sanction. It should be its goal should be to neuter Americans' ability to sanction.
And so give us like steps in that. How would they achieve that? How would the Iranians achieve that goal?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm not a international relations degreed individual. So this is how do you say, like a what's the word I'm looking for? Just a layman's perspective on things, right? I'm not a but it should. I mean, we're on that way, and I'm only saying this because I've heard multiple people say to this point. I mean, Ryan Grimm has said that in a very short time, American sanctions might not even mean anything. In a multipolar world, why would American sanctions mean anything?
Iran is forced to sell their oil for 30% below cost, and they only can sell it to China, and China barters with them. Iran's economy shrunk by 20-30%, and that's already being under sanctions, right? So there's a heavy toll. Iran doesn't exert that kind of, they don't have that type of influence. China does. What you're saying, China can do it also to their own detriment. The only card Iran has is to destroy the global economy by way of shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. And that's a mutually assured destruction strategy, right? So Iran does not want to do any of that, right? This is all to.
You're talking about it in pre-war terms, though. Yeah, of course, Iran prior to this war, and even after the 12-day war was still unable to necessarily leverage anything. America still had its economic dominance over the world. It still had its military dominance over the world. But as America goes on to become a more and more of a paper tiger, more global economies are going to stop dancing to their tune as the dollar stops maintaining its global dominance. I don't see how it can have this much leverage in the
Yeah,
future.
but Iran can't accelerate that, right? The U.S. is already declining in power, but these are very
They
long.
are.
These are
They
very long, but
currently
these
are.
are very long-term trends. To dethrone a superpower takes sometimes hundreds of years, right? In this case, we're a modern world; it'll be quicker, right? But if the U.S. makes all the wrong decisions, they'll still have tremendous power for the next 50 years. You're not going to dethrone the United States just by Iran, now being able to close the strait. What Iran's card is that they can do untold damage to the global economy, which will hurt them also, right? So that's the leverage they have. They can't make other countries do what Iran wants. They can't tell the Europeans what to do. They can't tell the Chinese what to do. So Iran doesn't hold that kind of power. But that power they do hold is that everyone is beholden to them. They're like, hey, you want your world to continue as normal? You better come talk to us. That's the power they have right now.
I think under normal circumstances, it would have been a very slow decline, but with the actions that the Trump administration has taken, I think it's going to be way faster than we could think. I mean, we're seeing it real time right now.
It's a multipolar world. We've lost ground, right? But the United States is very relevant. The Western world relies on it. Even in Asia, from Japan, South Korea, Australia, they're heavily dependent on this world order. So for this world order to flip upside down takes years and years and years. It just doesn't work like that. Short of a war.
Under normal
Why
circumstances,
is
yes,
why
but
is oil
even
price down then? Why is
our
oil price
traditional
down then?
vassal. Sorry.
No, I was asking Cyrus. Why are the oil prices down then, Cyrus?
In light of the rumors that a deal is going to be made, and they're down in the future markets. That's the paper markets, right? If
No,
you
no,
go
I'm
buy,
not looking at the futures market. I'm looking at the market as it closed today. We were at 112 just 3 days ago. We're at 103, I think it is now, 102, as it is right now. This is not the futures.
yeah, it's
This is
baked
as
in.
is.
It's baked in that the Strait of Hormuz will open, and it hasn't dropped significantly, right? And it will go up again if
It's
these.
been it's been baked in for 2 months, 3 months.
It has been baked in for two. Everyone's been expecting
No,
it.
it's because they're
All
letting
the
oil go through, Cyrus. That's why.
not enough, not a substantial amount, and it goes to China. It's not business as usual, right? It's not business as usual.
It's not business as usual. That's why double the price that it used to be. But that still doesn't put the world like I'm with Suleiman. I don't think you get it. Suleiman is basically saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, Suleiman, that if they actually really closed the strait and really, really closed it, then they could put the pressure on on the globe economically, right? While they still let ships go through, that's not going to happen as US increases production as well and starts supplying other people. We're not going to get to $150 barrel of oil, right?
We
And
don't
if you
need to.
don't
We
get
don't
to
need to get to
150
150.
or
We
what,
don't need to get to that.
you need to get to 115, and we haven't been able to do that either.
It's not about like exactly where the oil prices are. These are all. This is a short-term crisis. If this continues for a few more months, even with these like tankers trickling through, it's going to have a major impact on the Asian economies, and we're
You
going to
just said
face.
this is over in 2-3 weeks.
I said if it continues. I said, if it continues, I predict it to be opened up for sure to go to the next phase of discussions and negotiations. Ultimately, I think the negotiations will not succeed. I think the United States does not want a deal. There's too much Israeli pressure. But I think we are going towards an off ramp. So the strait is opened up for a little while. And then there'll be a decisive point where, hey, Iran is like, hey, you guys are not good faith actors, and we're going to follow through with what we said. I give it a several month window for this to happen. There's a time limit for that.
If they open it back up, they lose all power.
That's not true. They can close it any time.
It's 100% true.
How do they lose all power when they can do the
Because it
exact same
took
thing
them,
at any time?
it's taken them
That's a
three
big statement.
months.
They're going to lose all power. That's a big
Yeah,
statement.
because it's
It'll
taken them.
take a lot of political credit to close it again.
Yeah,
You
and
need
it took
military
them
credit.
three
You don't need
months.
political credit. You just go do it. You're like, hey, these guys attacked us. They
You
destroyed
ask
our economy.
questions and then answer them yourself. So I don't know. Maybe you should just have
Yeah,
rules by
Joe,
yourself.
Cyrus, let him answer. Let's have a discussion, right?
Mhm.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I'm saying it took them 3 months to ramp up the pressure to get to this level. If they were to open it again, people knowing that it could close again, they're going to hold the reserve, continue to ration. So they'll have more of a reserve. It's going to take them, I don't know, 6 months to ramp up this much pressure. Like,
Exactly.
it doesn't make sense.
You're spot on. That's part of my calculations. You're spot on. They would give that up. That pressure build up that is necessary, right? Because they can't just push a button and all of a sudden the pressure is on. You're spot on, and they would lose that. I 100% agree.
Yeah, so they lose all power because
It's not all power.
that is
It
their
takes
power.
it takes 6 more months, like you said. It'll take some time to rebuild the pressure up and re-exert. It's not a definite thing. It's not a forever thing. But I agree. It's give and take. Like it for sure softens the hand and it takes power away in that interim. You're right. I mean, it's give and take. They're not willingly doing it. The U.S. has to give some major concessions as well. It's a two-way street.
I still don't understand how if they open it, they don't lose all power. But it's you waiting for 6 months to gain enough pressure
See, but
to
what you
get your
guys are caught
will
up
is
on,
not going
you're
to
like, how can
happen.
you trust the Americans? Like, and I agree. It sounds crazy to go into negotiations with people that in the last round they bombed you. They are treacherous. Like your arguments are fundamentally sound in spirit, right? You're like, dude, what the hell are the Iranians doing? Don't trust these guys. You have maximum power now. These are valid, right? But in actuality, Iran wants sanction relief. They are willing to take that risk at the expense of substantially weakening their hand for the next 6 to 12 months. Your points are very salient, Joe, on what they're giving up, but that's not all power. Their missiles still work. They're still can pinpoint accurate. They still have, some estimates say they have 200,000 drones. How are you going to stop 200,000 drones? Iran can do this again and again and again.
I think the main weapon that America has used against Iran has been time. And if Iran reopens the Strait of Hormuz, that resets the clock. If Iran has to wait another 6 months for it to build up pressure again, then I mean that's enough of a deterrent for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, and the rockets and drones do not cause pressure on America.
They
It
cause
doesn't
pressure when
reach
they can hit
America.
any ship anytime they want. They cause pressure because that's what's enabling Iran to close the strait. It's not a few mines. Iran has a wide array
Yes,
of
we get
of
that.
assets that they can bring to bear. They have cruise missiles, they have drones, they have submarines, they have loitering munitions. They have a lot of assets at their disposal, and they're continuing to
They
build on that. They're
they
producing right now as we're speaking.
they could have a net with mechanized sharks. It doesn't matter if they close this. If they reopen the strait, supplies go back out, warehouses get full, and it's going to take them 6 months to create pressure again. Missiles and rockets and drones put zero pressure on America directly. They can't hit America.
I mean, 4
Ships
bases were
can pull
destroyed.
away.
Billions of dollars in
Yeah,
assets.
that's already been done. That's
American
already been
personnel.
done.
Yeah, but they can do it again. We still have assets there. We
You're
still have
gonna
a
hit a
bunch of.
base. You're gonna hit a base again and think you caused damage.
There's multiple bases. There's so many more targets for Iran to hit. There's so many more. They can wreak havoc on the region. They have not done it. There's a lot of pressure that the whole reason Iran has leverage is their massive missile force. These are heavy ordnance, right? It's not a 100-pound warhead. It's 1,200-pound warhead coming at you Mach 4. Anything it hits, it gets turned to dust. That's why Iran has leverage.
I disagree with you. That's why they have defense. But that's not why they have leverage.
It doesn't look like defense to me. It looks like offense. When you can reach out and touch anything you want within a 1,000-kilometer radius,
Have they been offensive?
that's an offensive capability.
It's,
Yeah, they were
it's,
offensive when the war started. They started going offensive mode. They were in defense of themselves. You defend yourself by going offensive. It's only defensive if it's inside your own borders. Once you start reaching out and touching assets
that's not
outside of your
true.
territory, it's offensive.
So if a sniper hits you in your house, it's only defensive. If you kill the sniper inside your home, that's
We're, talk,
ridiculous.
we're talking about a wide area of operations with naval forces, air forces, and
It was all
you're simplifying it.
retribution. It was all retribution. It was not offensive.
If you're denying that Iran's missile force is not an offensive capability, I mean, I don't like we're not speaking the same
It is a
language.
capability, but that's not what happened,
They
and that's
use
not
it
how
in
they use it.
self-defense. They engage in warfare in self-defense, but they're taking
Thank you.
offensive.
It's
But they're but but
self-defense.
they're but they're taking offensive actions with their offensive weapons. These things can reach out and touch a car. They're as
It
accurate
can,
enough.
it
And
can, and if they did, the world perception would be different. Pressure would be different. Global governments would be acting different. Like
That's why
everything
there's
is
a
a different.
timeline. If they wait 3 years, like Suleiman said, 100%. This card can only be used within the next 6 months. Otherwise, all the reasons you mentioned, and Suleiman said, you're right, Joe. We agree on a lot, but we disagree on the conclusions. We're dealing with the same data, and you're a smart person, no doubt. But the conclusions we're reaching are different. And by the way, I'm very confident in my projections, but no one has a crystal ball. Like, so by no means, I may seem like I'm for sure know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're just giving your opinion. No
Yeah,
problem, no problem,
exactly.
no
I'm
problem.
not sure
Okay, let me
what's
bring
going.
some more. Let me and look. It's fine, it's fine. Look, I like you being on the panel because you have an alternative opinion to some people, and
Hey,
have a similar opinion to it. But that's why we had like the discussion now. Just that you just sometimes you just need to let someone finish the point. But
so,
other than that, it's all good. Go
Suleiman,
on,
I
Joe.
normally wouldn't do this, but someone's asking to request the mic who says that he's accused of trying to commit a plot against Bank of Year. But he has almost no following, so I don't know if it's for real or not.
I doubt it. Who is this person?
For Sean? It's
I
just
missed it.
so
What
it's
what
so
plot?
it's so
What's the plot?
tempting. It's
I
so
missed it, Joa.
tempting.
What's the plot? I missed it.
Okay, 1 second, Cyrus. I don't know whether to bring him up or not. Shall I bring him up? Let's see. What's he claiming anyway?
Look at his bio.
Come on, Sully, let's have a little bit of fun.
Okay, cool. Let's bring him up. Forsan?
Yes. Thank you all. So my name is Farsan Sharafi. I am an Israeli Arab of Palestinian descent. And what you've read on my account is true. There has been an attempt by the Israeli Shin Bet to try and frame me in an assassination attempt of Israeli MK Itamar Ben-Gvir. And there has been a lot going on for the last 3 years because of it. I think that will be all for now.
Wow, for Son, it sounds like you're really ahead of the curve.
Well, I
Disavow.
don't
Disavow.
care. I
Wait,
don't
1 second. Disavow. Obviously, I don't like Ben Vigir, but I don't want to be anybody saying that we have spawned some kind of assassination attempts against him. That's crazy. Cool. Okay, thanks for that. Appreciate your thoughts. Let's go to Prashant. Go ahead, Prashant.
I just wanted to comment. Oh, so is it me or is it Suleiman?
Sorry? What was that?
Are you giving me the floor to speak or is
I
it
thought
for
you. Oh,
someone
I
else?
thought you spoke. You said that was it. Are you finished? Are you still speaking?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you.
What do you mean Israeli citizen of Palestinian descent? That's the first time I heard that bullshit. Can you
What
can
do
you
you mean?
elaborate on that? Can you elaborate what you mean on that?
Well, have you been to Israel?
No, because Israel doesn't exist. You live in Palestine, correct?
Yeah, well, it's occupied Palestine. Nowadays it's called Israel. So let's stick with
Yeah,
the facts right now.
that's what people with money are trying to realize. They're trying to make that our reality. We must resist and refuse that. Are you on the same page, or are you, selling your ass for a citizenship here? Because I've never heard. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, bro. I popped in here. I heard you say something very unique. I've never heard this term in my life before, so I was very intrigued, and I just wanted you to elaborate on that. What does it mean to be an Israeli citizen of Palestinian descent? Is Palestinian just an ethnicity now? Is it not a country anymore? Like, I'm confused.
As simple as it sounds. I am an Israeli, a full right Israeli, but I come from a Palestinian descent, meaning my forefathers are Palestinians before the state of Israel was established.
So you're hanging on to the Israeli passport for your dear life. For what
I don't
reason?
give a, with all due respect to everyone, but I don't give a fuck about my Israel ID. Nor do I care about anything, honestly, at this point, because what you guys are talking about is much more important, and that is the situation with Iran. And I do agree with you guys that Iran cannot actually keep blockading the strait. It's a two-edged sword. For
Look,
now,
I
it
know
can
I
get
know the
better.
situation. Look, I know the situation in Israel is very complicated right now, and there's going to
No,
be
not
a
for me.
change in
Not for me.
government. But I
No,
don't want
not
to.
for me.
I don't want to implicate you in anything. This is not my intention. I was just very
You're
confused
not
about.
actually. I am welcoming any questions you or anyone has. You're talking to someone who
Appreciate
met
it, bro.
with it.
Appreciate it. Thank you for
Yeah,
clearing that up.
I just want to make it clear. I'm not someone who's gonna be, having a second thought about saying what he's about to say. He was talking with someone who met with the Shin Bet and the officers, and I told them loud and clear that Benjamin Netanyahu is on my list, and if I can destroy.
Even they want some kind of a change or reform in the country because the situation is quite unbearable currently in Iran. So, but the tricky thing is, how do you trust the United States that they won't just repeat what they did? This is a country that cannot be trusted, that kills leaders mid negotiations. So this is where they have to basically do a mind game and a game theory on that basis. However, I think it would be very foolish for the United States to, if they make a deal, a permanent ceasefire, and they attack Iran once again, that will be very widely condemned by the international community. because this won't be the first time they have done this. So I think if I were to advise them, I would obviously try to improve the situation in Iran so you don't have violent protesters once again. If the situation gets worse and worse economically for the people there, the country will never go back to normality and it will be unstable once again. And then you have foreign actors that will basically try to benefit from this without even striking Iran. Just recently, there's been a lot of news about more and more and more weapons smuggling into Iran, and many of them have been caught by the Iranian security forces, the United States or Israel or whoever is trying to smuggle weapons into Iran. But how many of them have not been caught? That's the real question. How many weapons have been smuggled into Iran in that time and have not been caught? So they have to make a fundamental change. There has to be a gradual improvement, and people that have hope that there is a good end to this, that they can at least, even if a small incremental improvement, there is still an improvement to look for in the future. Otherwise, I think Iran will face even further instability. For example, 50% of Iranian total exports goes directly to countries that are very, very under the influence of the United States. For example, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, even Pakistan, but the export to Pakistan is only about 4%. But the exports to Iraq makes up about 18 to 21% at some point. It varies year by year, but it goes up to 21%. So, and Iraq is under heavy American influence. They could literally implement secondary sanctions, and that will devastate the Iranian economy. So I think that the only trade-off is that they have to trust the United States that there will not be second attacks if there's a permanent ceasefire. Otherwise, I don't think they can live off the tolls that they charge from the Strait of Hormuz. And over time, the United States and the global economy will probably adapt to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. They will look for alternative routes or some other places to get their energy from, and Iran will no longer have that point. Will no longer have that advantage that they currently have. So I agree with Cyrus that a negotiation and a ceasefire will be beneficial for the Iranian government rather than just holding on to the Strait of Hormuz. And they will probably face a much harsher sanctions in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Joa, any response? If not, let's go to Ziad. Ziad, jump in.
Salam, Joe, and everyone. I just wanted to say a couple of comments. One about international law. When you were discussing Cyrus Strait of Hormuz, the school that is being spoken for the last 4 years comes from offensive realism, specifically the U.S. and Israel. When Trump declared his war on Iran, he didn't do it through a resolution in the Security Council, and he didn't apply any of what the international law says when you go out to war. That by itself shifts gears where you cannot expect from the other side of the equation that they should apply international law. That is one thing. In which there is no way on earth that you can join liberalism and realism at the same time and say, let's go for it. The other thing about the Strait of Hormuz itself, Israel and the US, and mostly Israel, reported massively after, and that I'm not saying that Iran is in a perfect situation due to the ongoing war until this moment, but Israel itself said that strategically, the failure of the 40 plus days of the ongoing war goes back to two strategic points. One, the misleading intel that was given on the 19th of January when Barnea, the head of the Mossad, went to the US and said that I can guarantee you a coup from inside Iran by relying on the Kurds and get them in after they start their airstrikes, and that did not happen. The second most important strategic point is Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, Cyrus, I would have agreed with you from a legal perspective if suddenly out of nowhere and without a war going on, Iran came out and said, hey, I want to collect tolls and to control the Strait of Hormuz and change the equation. But Iran's move towards the Strait of Hormuz came as a reaction to the offensive illegal war on Iran that started at the beginning. When they said, and that they can literally defend it by Article 51 saying that, hey, this is some of this territory is mine. If I would allow movement of ships through that Strait of Hormuz, I would literally give benefit to my opponent who's leading a war on me. And for that reason, I want to control it. In the absence of diplomacy or international law, that vanished from the world after a war genocide for almost 3 years in Gaza, and a million decisions from the ICC, ICJ, arrest warrants, and everything that we can talk about if you want to go to the sole core of the international law, meaning the EU and whatever it gave us and spoke about since the 70s. I don't see this being applied now, especially that when, again, Trump declared his war without any legal background, except for one thing. He said, what I want, I can get by force. And for that reason, that was the reaction from there. And going back to that point about what the Israelis are saying, they're saying if Iran didn't seize the Strait of Hormuz from day 2, day 3, this war they would have been won in a different way. The war direction that you see today would not have existed at all. But the only obstacle on the way of the US and Israel is literally the issue of the Strait of Hormuz. The other thing, when speaking about negotiations or diplomacy, you need some kind of a confidence or to build confidence between both sides to believe in the process itself. I want to remind you that it was on a Sunday when Kushner and Witkoff were meeting the Iranians with the Omani mediator. And back then they said, we're going to meet in Vienna on Friday to continue the discussion with our teams discussing diplomatically how to find a solution. But what happened back then is that the US declared the war on Tuesday. They didn't wait for Friday. They declared the war, and they're still talking the language of war. If you look at the Israeli political statements coming out of Netanyahu's government or Bennett or anyone that is most probably would replace him if there would be elections in September. And I highly doubt there would be any elections because Netanyahu will not go for elections with the current situation in Iran, Lebanon, and Gaza. They're all saying we're going to continue controlling the safe zones in Gaza and Lebanon. And the war on Iran did not start yet because in the tactical perspective, not strategical, they have a specific list of goals that they did not achieve any of until this moment. For them, when they talk about the nuclear project, they see Iran as a power that controls proxies in the region. And if Iran gets somehow that ability or that project that they call the nuclear project, the whole equation when speaking about balance of power would be completely different. We're speaking about any kind of a country that would ally somehow with Iran or have some kind of a similar agenda or political stance in the region. So I can't I can't get it, like I can't accept the concept of saying we should apply international law when it comes about a country that has been illegally under attack and under war and tens of years before it through under sanctions, and say that they should open the Strait of Hormuz, which strategically does not make any sense while you are literally now in the middle of a war and you have statements coming from Israel that is super interested in continuing this war and moving it into a regional war that, hey, I would give you the Strait of Hormuz, so I would lower the pressure on you rather than put more pressure on you when speaking about regulations of war or strategic steps that you can
Yeah, I want to
apply in the time
clarify
of
one
war.
point. You make awesome points. You're spot on. I never said that closure to the Strait of Hormuz wasn't a fair play. It would be stupid for Iran not to have closed it, right? I'm talking in perpetuity for the long term. Right now, Iran has huge international favor because of the reasons you listed. I've been one of the vocal advocates for that here. So that they are playing it correct. They're making brilliant strategic moves, but right now they need to maximize the lever they have, right? And the ultimate goal is sanctions relief. But to your point, they're dealing with treacherous negotiators on the other side. They can't be trusted. They're nasty people. It's a very tough situation, as Suleiman put. There's no clear way to make
And
sure.
that's why diplomacy does not work at the moment, because neither the US nor Israel in the so-called negotiations until this moment showed any kind of a sign that they're really interested in a diplomatic solution. That's the problem. You get it? You get what I'm talking about from an
100%.
international relations perspective.
One of one,
So I can't tell them do not collect tolls or do not get 2 millions from each ship. By the way, there were specific examples for ships that they were allowed to move in by Iran to show goodwill that they have no problem with the world or the international community, and their problem is with those who are literally bombing their schools, bombing their sovereignty, destroyed and assassinated 90% of their political leadership, hitting hard at their military leadership. And they're talking about getting on the ground forces to get in and take their uranium and get out. And by the way, the last statement, and I think Sulaiman talked about it as well, the statement that came from Trump is that we will never ever let them stay with that uranium and we will get it out or this will not end. And that by itself tells you the address. Unfortunately, I'm super in favor of reaching a diplomatic solution to put an end for this misery, because the other outcome would be if Israel goes for what it wants to do with the US is a desperate, miserable regional war. Because we all know that if they go for that other option they speak about, which is to hit hard at the energy facilities inside Iran, yes, Iran does have the capability to destroy every single energy facility in the Gulf states. which does not bring any benefit to anyone in this region, except for Israel, that builds its whole strategy on getting every single country in the region into a regional war, then get this war to start to last for another 10 years while each country is fighting with each other, and they sit and decide and look at everyone. But the problem is that you have someone who's sitting in the White House that does not understand that, but backs up that and wants to push for that and wants to continue that. Even though everything, you know something, if I want even to take it from the perspective of the national security of the US itself, the guy screwed everything. I mean, for years to come, you need to understand, between his first administration and his century deal and messing up with the Palestinian cause, then coming now and declaring this offensive realist perspective that I can get what I want in the Middle East and I want to share it. And by the way, he said he wants to share the Strait of Hormuz multiple times and several times in his statements. He's literally doing more harm to the national security of the US more than anyone else, and he doesn't care. That's his problem. So neither scientifically or theoretically or from the international law school or from the international relations school or from war studies school, you can understand what is the strategy that he's applying. The last comment, because I want to give a chance to everyone else. That guy who came up, I don't know him, but that comment that was given about Israeli Arabs, which is not accurate when speaking about that specific population. There are 2 million Palestinians that are living in the 48 lands. Those people did not leave at the time of the Nakba. They are the descendants of the Palestinians who managed somehow to stay in their villages, and they were given by force Israeli citizenship, and they live in the 48 Palestinian lands. Those are Palestinians by their identity, but they are obliged to hold Israeli passports. They are part of the 14 million Palestinians that are living in the diaspora and inside Palestine, full stop. There is no argument there. And at the time that Israel is waving and declaring a total war on anything that is Palestinian, those 2 million Palestinians are part of the Palestinian cause, nothing more or less. Thank you, Sulaiman, for the time. And thanks, Cyrus.
Thanks, Ziad. Let's go to Prashant. Prashant, jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Sulaiman. It's been an
Your mic's a bit low.
Hello, can you hear?
Yeah, your mic's a bit low.
Oh, let me see if I can turn it up. Any better?
Sorry, speak again.
Is that any better?
I think it is, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll talk loud. I said it's been an interesting conversation and it's improved in the last 10, 15 minutes. You know, the Iran-US deal, it's when I shared the space, this is how I shared it. Why should Iran trust the US? The US lies all the time. That's a major problem. And who's the liar in chief? We all know who that is, Trump. You know, in my view, Iran is the adult on the block in the world right now. You know, they have been more reserved. They've been more careful. They've been more humane. They've been more cautious. They've just been the adult on the block. And I just think everybody on the planet should be thanking Iran now for standing up to the psychopaths in the US and Israel. That's where I'm at. I mean, and that gentleman that came up that said he was an Israeli citizen from a Palestinian, he made complete sense to me. And Ziad just pointed it out. They have to be Israeli citizens because they were Palestinians when Israeli took over and occupied the place. And what he said was, to me, made so much sense. It's not that complicated. Israel is the problem. The US is the problem. They're both evil entities, the governments. I'll say the governments, because I think it was Ziad or somebody that pointed out, both of them, the gentleman that came up, there are good Israeli citizens, and they're standing against this. So it's just, that's pretty much about what I wanted to have to say. You know, why should Iran trust the US? Iran's doing the world a service. And they don't necessarily have all the answers, and they're just doing their best as the madmen continue their madness and their evil. So I'm just up here to say thank you, Iran. That's what I'm up here to say. And keep doing what you're doing, and I'll do anything I can to bring truth to this situation and thank Iran once again for the help and for what they're doing for the world. That's all.
Thanks for that, Prashant. Let's go to Mish.
Yes, hi Suleiman, thank you for the mic. Is it okay if I come back to the LNG discussion?
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
Yeah, but Joe has gone, so
He's glitching out. He just keeps on trying to come back up, but unfortunately, lots of people are
okay.
getting dropped. But go ahead, Cyrus is here, and Joe will probably come back up.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the Russian LNG tankers haven't been able to go through the Suez Canal since May 24. I also wanted to point out that Qatar is a big investor in the LNG operations in the US. They're making a lot of money, and that the US has been pushing hard on Europe to sign contracts to buy their LNG. They pressured. Like 6 weeks ago, I think, they were going to impose some new tariffs, and it was all about the gas deals, signing the contracts. Also, Cyrus, keep in mind that most LNG, 60 to 70% of the LNG contracts in the world are 10, between 10 and 20 years. And the LNG that you buy in Qatar needs a different system than the one you buy in the US. The fracking LNG from the US is a whole different game. So if you start buying LNG from the US, you cannot turn around and use the same facilities with the Qatari, the Qatari LNG. Just wanted to put that information out because it makes sense what Jonah was saying. These are long-term contracts, and you cannot switch from one to the other easily. It's a big
Yeah,
investment.
but where are the contracts? There's no new 20-year contracts guaranteeing only to deal with the United States. It's a global market, and the issue is fracking is very expensive. So Qatari and GCC LNG is much cheaper, and it's one large market, so it will reach an equilibrium. It's just that's not how global markets work. But Joe is back too. It seems we need to bring him back up so he can chime in. I think he's more on your side on this. But certainly the U.S. has put a lot of pressure on the Russian sources, especially to undermine Russia. But they wouldn't want to undermine their GCC investments. You know, they need the GCC to fund the data centers and multiple other investments in the AI future. So they don't want to undermine the GCC and destroy their economies. You know, so even by 20%, 20% will be substantial. This is not some conspiracy to close the Strait of Hormuz on purpose to shift the global energy to one pole. You know, the global market's too vast, and geographically they serve different areas. So the pool is too big. You know, you're not going to pour a bucket of LNG in it and change the whole game. It just doesn't work like that. And most importantly, the production cost. Once prices go back down, the U.S. shale plays won't be as viable. So
But Cyrus, if you're what you're saying is right. Look, Saudi oil takes about $6 to produce. American oil takes 55. So by your estimation, America shouldn't be selling any oil. It shouldn't even be producing any oil. It should just be buying oil. Because if you're making an assumption that things will homogenize because it's cheaper to produce in one place, and they'll just increase production because they can make more money because they're more profitable, and US wouldn't be able to sell any because Saudi Arabia will produce everything the world needs because they can produce it cheaper.
I mean, if you look at the shale,
But that's not how it actually
but if you look
works.
at the shale plays, the production and it's been an ebb and flow. It hasn't been consistent across the board. We've always been an energy producer, whether mostly for domestic. In this case, now we're exporting a lot, one of the largest exporters now. So it ebbs and flows, and it all has to do with prices. When prices are $100, of course, all the U.S. players are excited. Let's make some money. But the reality is, it just costs much more to produce it here, and it will still have its purpose. I'm not saying it's not all or none. It doesn't mean the U.S. has to stop producing, but it's not going to. It will fail at trying to dominate the market. The market's too big, and the other producers are producing too much. They just won't succeed at it.
No, they just
Um,
want to control the European market. This is
That
part
I
of the
agree,
plan.
the 100%.
The multipolar thing. We all share our zones, and basically the states is putting its hands on Europe, and it's going to control
100%.
Europe through the energy system.
100%.
It's not a global
but
thing, as I
but
told you. The
but Mitch, we're
investments.
selling to Asia.
Yeah, we are, but it's going to be very limited because of the investment that you need because they're different systems. The LNG that you get from the fracking and the one you get from Qatar is a different system. This is why it took so long for Europe to be able to buy large quantities. The ports are different. Plus, the U.S. is imposing to use their own boats, which are completely different, and the way the way the whole how do you call it?
The dock.
Transportation, yeah, the dock, the transportation, they're completely different systems.
Yeah, but we're not getting LNG from shale for the most part.
Yeah, we get a lot of gas from shale plays.
Yeah, we do some, but not the majority of it.
That was actually one of my first jobs out of college. I worked for an energy company in Texas briefly. I know a little bit. I mean, I'm by no means an expert on this, but I know enough about it to know how vast the market is. So, but the crux of the matter is
Yeah,
what
you
Mish
get
said.
some from shale, but not the majority of
Mish
it.
hit
But
the
there is some.
Mish hit the nail on the head. This is about Europe making sure they're in our orbit. I've said that earlier. He said it much better than I. And it's all about making sure that Russia does not have any influence or any leverage over Europe. America wants Europe fully on its side to be so we can continue being a regional hegemon. The U.S. has never been a global hegemon. We've been a regional hegemon, and Europe is very, very important in that regard. We can't just throw them to the wolves. Yes, we're pulling away from NATO, but it doesn't mean Europe is not important to us. Europe is still very, very important to us.
The whole European thing is also making sure that the cost of energy in Europe is very high, so you can keep on deindustrializing Europe by shipping all the industries, the one that are worth it, in the States. I think this is one of Trump's plan. I don't know if he can do it, but
But that's a bad strategy because how do you guarantee these industries will be relocated in the United States? Many of them will go to China, which is not a good thing for the United States. Because at the end of the day, European countries are your allies. You want to have European countries to grow. If I was U.S. president, I want them to grow, to be strong, and to be united because that's the only way to counter Chinese and Russian aggression. I don't understand how deindustrializing Europe is going to benefit the United States because, as we see, for example,
has Biden or Trump tried to unite Europe?
I mean, but Joe Biden was heavily against Brexit. They wanted the UK to have a good relationship with the European Union, and
But he blew up the pipeline.
yes, but that's again related to Russia. But I mean, it doesn't matter. That's a wrong way to go about politics. If you are weakening your own allies, especially what he said about deindustrializing Europe, European countries are facing huge competition. European companies, car companies, against Chinese car companies. And if you were to increase the cost of production for European companies, that will only make them uncompetitive in the global markets, and that will benefit no one but China. I mean, American car companies are not that. They cannot replace European ones. To be honest, I think China is the biggest threat to European industries.
Yeah, you're a rational thinker. Everything you're saying is so correct, but America doesn't think like that. Their power is more important than the well-being of the alliance and Europe. It makes no sense, but they're doing it. America is playing the stupidest playbook. It makes no sense, but they're doing it.
I don't think America cares about Europe, to be honest.
You have to care about themselves.
This is an American who lives in Europe. Okay, I don't think America or Americans, for the most part, care about Europe at all.
But they should care about themselves. I'm saying that deindustrializing Europe will hurt America. It's not just
No,
about.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think America's looking at Europe as an ally. I think they do to the degree of Russia, but if they move the power to the West, I don't really think they care about it. I really don't.
I have a question. You know this anti-European rhetoric that is common within the MAGA movement in America. Do you not think this has something to do with Zionist lobby and the fact that European countries are recognizing the state of Palestine and they're not very as Zionist as they used to be?
It's older than that though, yeah. Because look, the Zionist lobby was mostly on the left for a long time. And Trump, I think his first term was not very Zionist to a degree, although, of course, I believe that this whole thing got started because Trump moved the capital to Jerusalem, or allowed it to move to Jerusalem. I knew as soon as that happened, I'm like, this is going to be bad in about 2 years. It took a little bit longer, I think, because of COVID, but it wound up being bad. But for the most part, it was on the left. And yeah, I don't think the rhetoric comes from the Zionists about Europe. I think it is America sees NATO as a big expense, doesn't see the production out of Europe like they used to. For the most part, we are competing with America on banking and finance and on a high degree. Every year that gets weaker and America gets stronger in that sense. But it didn't used to be. Europe used to be strong. Now it's just like the remaining vestiges of it that they try to take away. Um, and the only thing that Europe has now is we didn't. America was where everyone with a big brain would go to get capital, and that capital has been being seen in places like Berlin and Lisbon and Paris and London. It's growing. America doesn't want to happen. They want them to go back, and you even see it in the VC world. They almost force if an American company funds a European company that is a startup, they almost force them to go to the U.S. first. Um, I don't think America sees Europe as an ally at all anymore. Um, which to me is a shame, but I understand the other side's argument. It's like, what's Europe do for us? Blah blah blah. It
I
is what
mean,
it is.
the help in Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, you might not like this. Yeah, I don't agree with these invasions, but it's when Europe actually stood up for the Americans post 9/11. So I mean, they are not standing up for the United States right now in Iran. I mean, they shouldn't because they're stupid. But they are your allies. But also, you need these allies. You know how hostile the United Kingdom has been against China. I mean, what business does the UK has to do with China apart from the fact that they want to protect American hegemony? So these tens of trillions dollars of economy, like the EU, the United Kingdom, altogether, they will be very, very useful in countering Chinese influence. I mean, China is growing at a much faster rate than the United States economically. So it's inevitable at some point China will have a larger GDP than the United States. So United States clearly cannot win this battle just by itself. They need allies. The strength of America is in its allies. They have so many allies across the region in Middle East. That's why they can attack Iran from many different directions.
I
And if
agree.
they
An
were to
empire is only as big as an empire is only as big as their allies allow them to be. If they lose their
exactly,
allies, they lose the empire. But you
exactly.
see, there's a really good example, and I always bring this up, and no one brings this up. When France did their first trade with China in yuan, the very next week there were race riots all in every single city in France out of nowhere. And the friend Macron was like, "We don't even understand where this is all coming from because of one deal." It was like huge, huge race riots where cities were on fire for that entire week, and it just so happened to be 1 week after they did a first trade deal with China. And to me, that was a warning shot from America. Like,
So that
keep
goes
it
to
up,
show
and we'll
Europe
destroy
is
your
important.
countries.
You make a very important point. That goes to show Europe is still very important. You know, I think you're mistaking.
Every country,
But
Cyrus, every country that trades outside the dollar is a threat. It
not
doesn't matter
not
if it's
any
Europe,
country
doesn't
of
matter if it's
significance to us.
Australia, doesn't matter who it is.
If they're in our realm, it matters much more. But to more importantly, Joa, you're mistaking the pivot east because Europe is much less relevant and Asia is much more relevant because China's so powerful, right? The threat of China, it's not that we're trying to fight China, we're trying to contain them so that Korea, Japan, Australia don't become Chinese. Because if they win, it's going to be their world. You're going to walk into Australia and you're going to have Chinese text in addition to English text, right? So that it's one or the other, right? Because there's not that many world powers right now. It's China and the United States, Russia to a lesser degree. So Europe is still very important, and we don't want
Cyrus,
to
can I add to that?
go ahead,
Sorry, can I just add to that?
please.
Also, if you don't contain China, these countries, sorry, they will sign free. If you, the further you push them away from themselves, especially with stupid tariffs against your own allies, you push them away to China. They have to sign free trade deals with some other countries, and that country is one of the countries that will sign free trade deals with China, and that will help China to grow even at a faster rate that they're growing right now. And you have to slow down the growth that China is experiencing. And the way to do that is basically limiting their access to global markets and not them having free trade deals with major world economies. And if these countries have free trade deals with China, over time they become more dependent on China than the United States. For example, the UK is still the largest trading partner of the United Kingdom. It's still the United States, but you know who says that won't change over time? And one day, if it's China, we can no longer have this hostile position towards China. You have to be friendly towards China because we don't want to piss them off. We don't want to face tariffs or levy tariffs on China. So the United States had a very good opportunity with the tariffs if it used these tariffs to contain China and sign free trade deals with its allies. and actually pressure these countries to put tariffs on China. Then you will slow down the rate which China grows. You will help the European economies. You'll help yourself, American companies, to grow and export. And I don't think China would have ever been able to surpass the US and its allies in terms of GDP. They will at some point surpass the United States, but combined with its allies, it's just unrealistic. The combined GDP of the US and its allies is over 60 trillion. I don't think China can ever reach that, especially with their struggling demographics.
The reason why UK looks the way it looks is because it's the number one trading partner of America. And every time US plays its game of printing money and then raising rates, who it hurts the most is your number one trading partner, always. They basically export inflation. So you want to look at the fall of the pound. It has everything to do with the fact that America, since the 80s, prints a ton of money, raises rates, England's power goes down, and they just rinse and repeat all over again. And that's why England looks how it looks.
Yeah, but also we export so many luxury goods from the UK, high quality goods, to the United States, and China is also buying luxury goods because they don't produce many luxury cars, they don't produce luxury goods and luxury services. They usually buy that from other countries, and critical about China. I don't like Chinese too much.
You're cutting out, Kayat.
Sorry, I muted myself. Do you hear me now?
We hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm very skeptical of China. I don't want the UK to.
Let me just correct you. I think you'll agree with what I'm about to say. Um, Luxury that has to do with heritage, you're correct. They don't produce anything, right? There is no Louis Vuittons, there are no Gucci's, there are no Burberry's. There's none of that in America either, right? When it comes to luxury because of innovation, China, as of late, is ahead of anyone else. From windows that you just slide your finger and they tint, to hitting a button and not being able to hear what's going on in the front seat without there being a screen at all. From massaging the feet to, I mean, you name it, they have it at the moment, far more than anyone else. So they produce luxury, they just don't produce heritage, which is what a lot of Westerns give value to, is, you know, a 200-year-old company. They don't do that.
Yeah, but what the Western countries combined can do is basically redistribute some of these industries that China currently possesses to other countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, India, and they have already doing this. But they just need to do it at a faster rate to basically ensure Chinese hegemony never becomes a reality. For example, Apple has switched to India. So many textiles have moved to Bangladesh, and so many other stuff have moved into Vietnam. I think that's the approach that the United States should be taking to prevent China basically to become a global superpower. Because once they have the GDP, they will have the largest military budget. They will produce the best technology, the best defense systems, the best aircrafts, and then the United States will lose its hegemony. So I don't want to see that happen. I'm very skeptical of China. I don't trust very authoritarian, very controlling regimes. I like to be allies with countries with similar values and systems. So because at the end of the day, if United States engages in very very stupid action and decisions, you know that there's some kind of accountability due to the system and the constitution that the United States has. You don't have that the same level of accountability to the Chinese government. They could basically genocide entire groups of people all across the world, and you know there's nothing the Chinese could do about it, even if the people disagree with it. You might possess.
America didn't do that in Iraq?
Yes, they are doing this, but I mean I'm seeing a big revolution in the United States, and the people are actually waking up to this. They didn't know about it, you know, for so many decades and decades that the Americans used to be brainwashed. They didn't know about the stuff the US was doing, but I think there's a big change happening, and this is why the system is a bit shaking. And I'm very optimistic about that. I think the Americans can take their country back from
If you,
this.
if you want to know the nature of the Chinese government, just look back at Mao. He starved literally 30 million Chinese. Human lives and individual freedom matters not. So that, and the gentleman that was here earlier from the Communist Party, it's all nonsense. The what we're fighting is the oligopoly, the oligarchs that have kind of manipulated their way into, you know, a lot of control, and we're trying to get rid of them. In China, it's business as usual. That's how they do it. The surveillance state is the standard. no questions asked, and to join the Communist Party, you have to jump through hoops, and you're part of the
Because
intelligence.
Cyrus, they killed this many people of their own. They killed this many Chinese people, and there's nothing they could do about it. Imagine if they do that abroad. Do you think? I think a large portion of China wouldn't even care. But even if they did, if they couldn't stand up for themselves, they can't stand up for any other country.
See,
So yes,
I'm less worried about them doing genocide in other countries, but it shows the values, right? That means the individual matters not, right? It's your voice matters not. The intelligentsia, the ruling class knows better. You just shut up and go with the program, right? So that's what like Westerners aren't cool with that. You know, Suleiman wouldn't be able to have a space here criticizing everyone and their mother. Look at how many we don't. Which world leaders have we not criticized? We criticize everybody here, myself included. So I want to be able to continue to do that. If I see my government act inappropriately, I want to be able to speak up and gather with my friends. You know, so there's a huge value divide here. That's one reason we shouldn't.
you know the best argument is that we couldn't have this space in China. I mean, if you were in China and China was doing the stuff that America is doing in Iran, we wouldn't be able to have this space. It tells you all.
Dude, we'd be in jail. Me and Suleiman would be first in line.
You know, that's not what I hear from people who have traveled to China. I can't say that I know for sure.
As visitors,
excuse me, and businessmen also that spend a lot of time there. One of them happens to be my landlord. So I just don't agree. And I don't claim to say that I know for sure what China is like. But, you know, many countries have evil leaders for a while and then they change. And what I hear from the people that go there is that China is changing. And it's
I
not
went there
the
as a
same.
businessman. I went there as a businessman.
Cyrus, control yourself. Let me speak.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just don't believe that. I believe that we're being lied to about China, just like we're lied to about Russia and Iran and everybody else. And like I said, it's not coming from just nowhere out of my butt. It's coming because I know people who go there. As I said, my landlord does business there. He just got back from a 3-week trip to do business on mainland China. If they're so horrible, why did they allow him to do that?
Bushan, ask him if he's allowed to criticize the government. No one's saying they're horrible. The thing is, there's a different things you need to like. There's different perspectives, right? It's what Joe was saying before. It depends on what you're willing to accept for what you're willing to trade. So
No,
if you want,
and
if you
Suleiman,
want,
I
sorry,
don't
go ahead.
disagree with that. And I don't disagree with what you just said. It's just that I have a different perspective. And
No,
the
I'm
perspective
saying. So ask your
the
friend though.
perspective that I come
No,
from
but Prashant,
is
I'm
that
asking.
the perspective that I come from is that I'm 75 years old and I have a government that's lied to me my whole life.
Yeah, I
Why
don't
would I
disagree with
believe that?
that. I don't disagree with that.
Why
But
would I believe that they're telling me the truth about China?
well, it's not based on the government. Um, but this is what I'm trying to ask you, that if you ask your friend that when you go to China, are you able to criticize President Xi? That, and let's see what answer he gives you. Because the point is, yes, China could be brilliant. I know a lot of people, as same as you, and have been invited to China. I am planning to go, not as an invite, but generally speaking. And no doubt, China is a lot more now sophisticated. They have better technology in the main cities. Main cities, I'm specifically saying, there is a better experience in terms of life than there is in the West. On the other hand, there are things that you have to sacrifice. So, as an example, there is a decent amount of, for example, there's a lack of freedom of movement to an extent. If you go to the subway, you're severely checked, and you can't criticize the government. Now, some people are like, I don't mind not criticizing the government because all these other things are better than the West. That's fine, you can do that. But for me, I would not do well in that country because I just cannot not criticize any government. So just like I criticize the United States of America and the UK, the country I live in. And I don't know if there's any country that I haven't criticized. But China is one of the countries that, although I'm very positive about it, I've got to catch a guest here now. I'm not negative about China. I think there's a lot of positives about China, and I like the fact that they're not bombing a lot of countries. And they're making deals, although some of the deals are very pro-China. I think sometimes people become either pro-China or pro-America, and it's not like a team. There's pros and cons to everything, although there's more cons to some and more pros to others. But yeah, there is certain setbacks in China, definitely compared to, for example, China to Japan. I prefer Japan over, and many of my friends who've been to both say there's more freedoms in Japan than there is in China. Again, each country is different to each other, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And I will ask my friend if you can criticize the government in China. I don't know if he'll know that. But all I know is, as I said, I've lived in a country for 75 years that has lied to me my whole life and are still lying to me.
True.
And China hasn't gone all over the world and doesn't have military bases all over the world,
True.
attacking countries and killing and slaughtering people. The U.S. does. So why would I believe my government about China?
But
I would
Prashant, the
rather.
difference is how they treat their own like people and the political
Yeah, but
dissent,
I
right?
don't know that,
So
and you don't either.
no,
And I don't
no, these
know that
are,
for sure either.
but they look, there's facts, right? These are documented.
No,
This is what China,
I don't
China
believe it.
does. This is what China does to
Believe
their
it.
political
I don't
prisoners.
believe it, Cyrus. I don't
After
believe it.
after
I
they
don't believe it because we're lied to constantly.
believe it. It is an authoritative regime. They
You
take
have
their
a right to believe it. I don't believe it.
when they execute their political prisoners, they take the organs and they give it to
Yeah, who got
patients.
shot in the
This
face
was
in Minnesota?
documented.
Who got shot in the face in
Well,
Minnesota?
I don't know about that. I don't think that's right. But the
Who
It
thing
got
Okay,
is
shot?
right.
is,
Cyrus, hang on. So, Cyrus, first of all, I wanted to ask how much time have you spent in China?
A few months
have you
Okay,
even
as a
been?
Westerner, right?
as a
So,
visitor. Yes.
yes, okay. So, what I wanted to remind you of is that the experience for visitors and the experience for people who live there and are from there is going to naturally be different. But those criticisms that you're applying to the Chinese government are all criticisms that in the United States, you could absolutely apply that for criticizing a different country's government, right? Think about people like, I mean, for God's sake, Nick Fuentes, you can be Suleiman, for goodness sake, you can be deplatformed, you can be debanked, you can absolutely have real life, real world ramifications. And if we want to talk about the way the prisoners are treated, then let's talk about the Israeli skin banks. Okay. So
But
you're
that's not
moving
America. They're
in
not
that, right,
Westerners.
right.
That's not
Yes,
America.
But Anna,
they
we
are
agree. I
Westerners.
agree with you on that,
No, they're
and
not.
that's why we're criticizing the United States of America and Europe so much because we love these freedoms that we have, and unfortunately, these freedoms have been taken away due to the Israeli lobby, due to the Zionist control of of our countries. And this is why we're speaking against it because we don't want to be in a situation where we're not allowed to speak against it. That's the whole point. So we don't want to get to where we're like in China where you can't criticize the government. Now, the problem with people, the argument people make in terms of pro-China, which I think is a fair argument, is well, although China does have it where you're not allowed to speak against the government, but the benefit of that is you don't have, I don't know, social collapse. You don't have China invading other countries. You don't have China. You have a decent life experience when you're in the main cities of China. I know in rural areas it's not the same. It's a bit more of a difficult life. So it just like it's so that's the element of it. Like that's one of the things that I am very appreciative of being in the West. That we can say what we want. We can do what we want. We can do this show. You couldn't do this show in China, as an example.
I
And
agree with
and
you,
be assured
Salim.
that we're not going to get run over by a tank too.
Nah, bro, what?
That would be easy out. They will torture you and imprison you for years, throw you in a dungeon. They are brutal.
And can I just
I
add
just
to
think
that?
that
Do you
Don't
know?
I
believe it.
just think that
Don't
fear
believe it.
mongering though
They lied
about
to you
China,
all.
I just think that fear mongering over China is a little bit of a Zio talking point, to be honest with you. And we see it happen. We know that it does happen, and we know why it happens at this point, right? Because to
But
act as though
how?
there is no
Where's the
opportunity
fear
for
mongering?
diplomacy.
How is it?
Where's
How
the
is it
fear
a Zio
mongering?
talk? No, but how is it? One second. How is it a Zio talking point? Because China, although is pro-Iran, it's not like they're anti-Israel. They've got deals with Israel as well. They've got deals in, for example, Haifa port. So it's not like
Right.
China, like Iran. It's not like it's China or Israel. Like China has more deals with
Yes,
Iran, but
because
China is a
they are
geopolitical.
they
Sorry.
because
Because
they
there's no
are a
Rothschild
global,
controlled bank
right.
in China.
And
And
there's
they
no fear
already
mongering
are
here.
there already are a global superpower, first of all. I mean, I would argue very much that there's a reason that Trump went to Xi and that the Iranian foreign minister went to Xi the week before and that the Russian foreign minister went the week after. There is
Yeah, we agree with
absolutely an
that.
No one
argument that
disputes that.
China already
They
is.
are a
So what I'm
superpower.
trying to say, hold on, Cyrus, let me finish, please. What I'm trying to say is that when we sit there and act as though our Western aligned values are the number one priority and the only thing that is keeping this country safe, rather than understand that, kind of like what Suleiman was saying, there is no perfect government. There is no like ideal government. Please let me know what country, right? But there is going to be good and bad within every single one of them. The point is that we're trying to get to de escalation, less conflict, more global trade. And unfortunately,
Well,
does
it's not
that
about good or bad. Look, there's more bad in terms of what the United States of America and Israel are doing compared to China. I think that's unequivocal. So there is more bad. So I'm not saying each one's got good and bad, like I'm trying to make it in the middle of the ground. Like each one has different levels of good and bad. I'm just saying specifically because people are trying to put it across like it's some utopian society, and I'm saying, okay, China has more good than the United States of America, especially when it comes to, like, someone said to me, Suleiman, look, there's two countries, like, I wouldn't want this, but hypothetically, there's two countries. One country is going to murder millions of people regularly, but you get to say what you want, and the other country isn't going to murder anyone, but you don't get what they say you want. Then I say, okay, I want people to live, right? But
Yeah.
you know what I want? Ideally, I'd want a country that doesn't murder people, and I'm allowed to say what I want. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I couldn't agree with you more, Sully. I think I absolutely agreed with everything that you were saying. I was just trying to point out the fact that when we try to make it seem as though Western values apply to all Western nations equally, and that our working with them and staying aligned with them, rather than accept that other countries can have things like, I don't know, healthy communism if they feel it is the best direction for their country to take. At the very least, we should be understanding that just because it doesn't align with our values or what we see as our values means that it's the right answer for everybody and nothing that we necessarily have to fight against. We don't have to become China to work with China. And we shouldn't have to work with Israel or any other Zio country just because they claim to have the Western values that we uphold. I'll land it there.
Israel doesn't. 1 second, sorry. And we're going to be just not wrapping up. We've got the interview with Carl Zar coming up, but Israel doesn't have Western values. This is the whole point. Actually, if you listen to any of my debate, I'm quite unequivocal that Israel does not have Western values.
I
This
agree
is the
with you.
problem.
Yes.
Israel does not allow free speech. Israel does not allow freedoms. Israel is a supremacist society. Israel is a society that has one rule for Jews and one rule for Goys and Gentile. Israel is a society that has murdered Israel's murdered more Westerners than Iran, as an example. It's not even close. Israel's murdered more Americans, civilians, than Iran. Israel's murdered and attacked more American military um, um, targets than Iran up until this war. Israel targeted more British Western people value it has people. Other than degeneracy, but they basically placed that American Western journalists. Like, it's not even close. So this country has zero Western values. I don't even know one Western value it has. Other than degeneracy, but they basically place that degeneracy into society.
I
Suleiman, can I
couldn't
make a
agree
couple
with you
points?
with you more, Suleiman. I was mostly criticizing the fact that I do hear this argument, like on some of the more Zio-friendly spaces, a lot, that behave as though any other system. And so I was criticizing what I think it was. Well, I know it was Cyrus, but it was somebody else too. Was saying about the fact that China is so full of these issues that they were the ones that we needed to distrust. And I would say that from a realpolitik perspective, there's not really much of a reason to trust the United States government, right? Nor is there any reason for us to behave as though we can't have some sort of diplomatic effort with nations that we're just not aligned with.
Yeah, I can reply to that. So, it's our
Yeah.
Western values that allow us to
So
accept.
just Cyrus, I think we kind of covered everything, but let me just quickly get a couple of other people in for quick 30 seconds because I have got this interview. Let's go to Andy, quick 30 seconds.
I mean, yeah, just going back to what you're talking about earlier, if Iran opens up that strait, they absolutely lose all of their leverage. They need to keep that thing closed tight until a deal is officially signed and the ink is dried on that page, because after they open it, they will lose the political capital to close it again. And yes, the PR doesn't matter, but I mean, if they open it, the pressure's released and it takes longer to get back to this point. So they absolutely should keep it closed, because you can't, when you're negotiating with people that have been lying to you and committing acts of terrorism against you, you have to hold on to all the leverage that you have.
Audio output. Okay. Looks okay. Record
Go ahead,
your
quick 30
message.
seconds.
Hear yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted
Test
to add to something
audio.
that Prashant said, that everything that we know
Okay.
about China is not coming from the United States. It's
Testing,
not coming from the
testing, one, two,
government. We have
three.
actual like
Testing, testing, one, two,
non-governmental
three.
sources. We have YouTube. We have people go there. We have
Okay.
actual witnesses that people to go to these countries,
Okay.
organizations,
Can you
and
hear me?
journalists. So not
Okay. Now I
everything
can
that
hear.
we hear about China
Brilliant.
is
It's my
coming from
side. It's
government.
having
Yes, I don't
issues. I
trust the
might have
government
to.
either.
Okay, no
So this is
worries.
why I'm very
Yeah, it's working now, bro.
skeptical
It's
of
fine.
China, because
It's
I've seen
something weird.
videos
Like I don't
when
get it.
a man asks
It's
a man
like when I
asks
start
a taxi
OBS, the
driver, "What do you
Eevee
think of
Mux
the government?"
sometimes
and he
has problems.
immediately
I don't have the same
calls
issue
the
with
police. This is
StreamYard,
how
but I
the
do with
dystopian
Eevee
the
Mux.
society is when it comes to government
Technology.
overreach and authoritarianism.
It's always
And
a
that is not something
problem.
that
And
was
the
put
best technique
given
is
to
to
me by
just
the
restart and
the
it
government,
works.
that I have to watch this. This is how bad China is.
Always.
This is
It's
from
good to know.
non-governmental
I'm just
sources.
gonna introduce you,
Unlike
and then
these
we'll
countries
get
like
you up.
North Korea and China, the
Okay, thanks
only
for that.
source of
Mishmash. Quick
information
30 seconds.
that you get in this country is from the government. So it shows you the difference and how dystopian these countries are. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Mishmash. Quick 30 seconds.
Yeah, quickly.
Yeah,
Just
we've got him
wanted
now. We've got him up
Suleiman to
now. We're gonna
suggest
ask him.
maybe with Carl Zai you could. I'm sure he has some knowledge about how the democracy works really fine
Yeah,
in
we've got him
terms of
now. We've got him
local,
up now. We're gonna ask him.
yeah, local governments in China, as opposed to obviously the state, which is very oppressive.
I don't know
And
who
I
that is.
also
You'll have to
wanted to
send me his
suggest
bio.
maybe, I don't know if you know Anas Al Haji,
Okay.
as a counterpoint to Richard Metter's
Oh, he
interview
don't. He's
to
I know who
discuss
you're talking about now.
Richard's
He's he's I don't know who that is. You'll have to
ideas.
send me his bio.
Okay,
So
I'll
we
try
have
sending
issues.
it.
Okay.
He has
He's
a
a Zionist.
Substack, Anas Al Haji.
Yeah.
Oh, he don't.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
He's
I know who
he's
you're
an
talking about
Arab.
now.
He's an
He's
Arab
Yeah,
Zionist. He got
he's
very angry.
professor.
He's very angry with us. Doesn't
pro-Israel,
like
so he
us
doesn't
because
like
we're
me.
not. He doesn't like Iran. You see, so
We have
he's very
issues.
he's very
He's a Zionist.
anti-Iran. Now I
Okay,
know who you're
I
talking
didn't
about.
know that.
Yeah, yeah. He's been
I
on our
didn't
space
know,
before.
but he has
He's
a
an
lot of
Arab.
knowledge
He's an
He
about.
Arab
didn't have a great
Zionist, so he got
experience
very
the last time he
angry.
came on the
He's very
space because he
angry
got
with us. He
pushed
doesn't
back on
like
a
us
certain
because we're
points and
not.
then he lost
He
it.
doesn't like Iran, you see. So he's very.
Oh, I didn't know.
He's very
I didn't know.
anti-Iran.
Mishmash,
Don't be sending me
I
Zayos.
know
What's
who you're
going
talking
on with you,
about.
bro?
Yeah, he's been on our
What is
space
this
before.
guy?
He didn't have a
This
great
guy comes on
experience
my
the last
space for
time
the
he came on
first
the
time.
space
He
because
said
he
he
got
got
pushed
pushed
back
back
on
on
a
certain
certain
points
points,
and
and
then
then
he
he
lost it.
guys on the YouTube.
Okay, thanks, Suleiman.
We're going to be
Enjoy
ending
it with
Mishmash, don't be
Carl.
sending me Zayos. What's going on with you, bro?
What?
I didn't know, bro. I didn't know.
Bro, this guy comes on my space
like
for the first time. He's sending
is.
me Zayos.
So click on that link and
guys
come across.
on the
I'm gonna end
YouTube.
this stream. We're gonna be
We're
on
going to be
the
ending
other
the YouTube.
stream.
Come across
So everyone
to
come
the
across
other
there.
YouTube channel, which
So
Siddha has put in like a
There
legend
we
he is.
go.
So click on that link and come across. I'm gonna